Okay, yeah, let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
Flag
of the
United
States of America
and to the republic
which
which stands
one
one
nation,
nation,
God,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. I'm going to read the right to know checklist. As chair of the Sanborn Regional School Board, I find that due to the state of emergency declared by the governor as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, and in accordance with the governor's emergency order number 12 pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. Please note that there's no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to this meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, I'm confirming that we are A, providing public access to the meeting by telephone with additional access possibilities by video or other electronic means. We are utilizing Zoom for this electronic meeting. All members of the Sanborn Regional School Board have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during this meeting through this platform, and the public has access to contemporaneously listen and, if necessary, participate in this meeting through dialing the following phone number: 1-646-558-8656. Meeting ID 938-4152-8927, or by clicking on the following website address. It's a YouTube address. You can also find it on the www.sau17.net, but it's YouTube, www.youtube.com/C/SRSD meeting videos. Anyone wishing to make a public comment concerning items on tonight's agenda, please email the superintendent, tambrose@sau17.net. B, providing public notice of the necessary information for accessing the meeting. We previously gave notice to the public of the necessary information for accessing the meeting, including how to access the meeting using Zoom or telephonically. Instructions have also been provided on the website of the Sanborn Regional School District at www.sau17.net. C, providing a mechanism for the public to alert the public body during the meeting if there are problems with access. If anybody has a problem, please call 978-482-7394 or email at helpdesk@sau17.net. D, adjourning the meeting if the public is unable to access the meeting. In the event the public is unable to access the meeting will be adjourned and rescheduled. Please note that all votes that are taken during this meeting shall be done by roll call vote. Let's start the meeting by taking a roll call attendance. When each member states their presence, please also state whether there is anyone in the room with you during this meeting, which is required by the right to know law. So I'm going to start with the people as they appear on my screen. Jamie?
Yeah, Jamie Fitzpatrick. I'm in my home office alone.
Larry?
Yes, I'm in my home. Larry Heath, I'm at my home in my workshop, and nobody's here but me.
Charlie?
I'm here at home all by myself.
Tammy?
Everyone in my home is downstairs watching the Bruins game. So I am in an office by myself.
Thank you for your sacrifice.
Scores 2-1 Bruins, if you're interested.
Dawn?
Dawn Dutton. I am in my home. I'm in a room by myself, but my family is somewhere else.
Peter?
I'm in my home. My wife is here, but if we go in non-public, I'll throw her down the cellar.
Okay. And Jim Baker, and I'm in a room in my home. Do the other attendees need to announce where they are as well? Who they are and where they are?
I actually don't know the answer to that. It might not be a bad idea to just have a quick whip around and let everyone.
Okay. So Matt?
I'm Matt Angel, School Business Administrator. I'm in my office at the SAU office in Kingston.
Patty?
Patty Haynes, Director of Teaching and Learning. I am in my home office alone.
Brian?
Brian Stack, Principal at the high school. I am in my home office. I'm the only one in the room.
Christopher,
Snyder, principal of Bakey School. I'm in my school office alone.
Jody,
Jody Gutterman, Director of Student Services. I'm in my home office alone.
and Ryan.
Ryan McCluskey, Memorial School Principal, and I am in my school office alone.
Tom,
Tom Ambrose, Superintendent. I am at home on my front porch alone.
Jake,
Jake Tedford, Student Council Representative. I'm in my dad's office alone.
and Christine.
Christine DeRocher, principal of the middle school, and I'm in my home office alone.
All right. So moving right along, we need action on the minutes of June 17th, 2020. Can I get a motion
Move to approve. Move to approve.
Thank you. Was there a second?
Larry.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any discussion? And roll call vote, starting with Jamie.
Aye.
Larry?
Yes.
Tammy?
Yes.
Dawn?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
And yes for myself. Also, review the minutes of July 29th, 2020. Need a motion to approve?
Hey, can I pause for a second, Jim? You need
Sure.
to ask Charlie whether.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Charlie. Charlie, do you vote to approve the June 17th minutes?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Sorry, I missed you there.
No, I was going to bring it up.
Okay. Okay, now, so back to the July 29th minutes, we had did Larry, you making a motion to approve those?
I made a motion to approve that.
Do we have it, Jamie, second?
No,
Or-
I got to, well, second.
Okay.
Yeah, second, then I have a comment.
Okay, so comments.
Yeah, so when I went through the minutes, it doesn't say in the minutes were sealed in perpetuity. So we should add that. And maybe we should even, well, I guess by voting to add it, we're voting to make sure they're sealed in perpetuity.
Yes.
That wasn't done.
Was done.
Are these the July 29th?
That's what I thought too, but it's not in the minutes.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay. We need to put
Phyllis
it in
added
there.
that. Phyllis did receive your note, and I did confirm that she should add that. So that's already been taken care of.
Oh, that's in it already. Okay, good.
You took care of it.
Yeah.
All right, so all in favor of approving the minutes as amended, starting with Jamie?
Aye.
Larry?
Aye.
Charlie?
Aye.
Tammy?
Yes.
Dawn?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
And myself is a yes. And last is the action on the minutes of August 12th. Need a motion?
So moved.
Okay,
Point of
Second.
order.
yes.
Point of order. Those are the minutes for the that are
For the
the
interview,
vacancy refilling.
yes.
Do we need the entire board need to approve those minutes?
Well, actually, I guess not, just Jamie and I probably.
Thank you, Tim.
Okay, and I second that. Roll call vote, all in favor, Jamie?
Aye.
Aye for myself. So the minutes are approved. Communications, Matt, do you have everything you need for the manifests, for these signatures?
I
You all
do so.
set?
Well, it's not exactly signatures, it's just the email approvals that I'm
Right.
the warrants.
Yep.
And so far, we're current.
Okay. And Tom, nominations.
Yes, we have just a second. We have a bunch. I would like to nominate, I'll read them as a group and the board can approve as a group. Samantha Corwin, 6th grade ELA teacher. Amber Loans, 5th grade teacher. Renee Morin, ELA interventionist. Christina Rousseau, occupational therapist, and Christopher Vinciguerra, music teacher. And those are all at Memorial. And at the high school, Janine Jorgensen and Camille Mahini as the nurse, and Janine Jorgensen is a math teacher. So those are the summer hires that needed to be done at the first board meeting of the end of August, as we always do.
Okay, so can I get a motion on
So
that?
moved.
All right, a
Second.
second. Okay, any discussion? Jamie?
Yeah, I just want to point out that the numbers, the financials on them, on the nominations are about 23,000 higher than budget. I support them nonetheless. Big part of that is math, and we certainly need to be focused on math education. Just we need to be cognizant that we still need to be coming in at budget by the end of the year. So we have to just keep in mind that we want to be balancing that out at some time.
The breakage almost always works out in the end, but we always keep an eye on it. Thank you for
I
pointing.
expect it would, yeah.
We always hire the best candidate and then we figure it out, but sometimes it swings one way or the other. Matt would let us know right away if there was a problem.
Yep.
Okay, so any other discussion? All right, vote to approve. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Oh, we already did that. Okay.
Yeah,
so,
you just got to vote, I think.
Yeah, roll
Yep.
call vote. Jamie?
Aye.
Larry?
Yes.
Charlie?
Aye.
Tammy?
Yes.
Dawn?
Yes.
Pete?
Yes.
And yes for myself. How about resignations?
None.
So superintendent's report.
So I have a number of letters. I just wanted to say that I did receive 2 or 3 letters today that were not in relation to the agenda on the school board tonight. They were but I did forward all letters that were received to the board. So anyone who sent a letter, I forwarded it to the board, and I replied to anyone that sent a letter. And the replies to the folks that had items that were not under consideration by the board was just, we've received your letter and I have forwarded it on to the board. But due to the fact that it's not congruent with what's on the agenda tonight, I won't be reading it out loud, but certainly I'm sure the board will take whatever your thoughts are into consideration when they do deliberate on the topic that they wrote about. Most of those letters were concerned with being remote versus in person, which I think they might have just misunderstood that the conversation later this evening about the remote learning plan is about the literal plan for remote learning, not whether or not we're in remote learning. So it's all very nice letters, and everyone was very fair and appropriate. And I just want the public to know that all letters were forwarded to the board. So I'll now read the letters that we've received. The first one is a note from Karen Scanlon, our nurse and the former union president or co-president. She just wanted you to know, she said, "Dear school board members and Mr. Ambrose, I wanted to thank you for giving me the opportunity to be the school nurse at the high school for the past 20 years. I feel very fortunate to have worked with so many great students, faculty, administrators, and community members. My nursing career at Sanborn has been a true pleasure and honor. Thank you for trusting in me to watch over the health of Sanborn students and staff. Much gratitude, Nurse Karen Scanlon." So we are wish Karen the best in her retirement, and I've enjoyed personally working with her very much. The next letter that I have to read is regarding remote learning, and this letter is from Leah Feroce, and the letter is from Leah and Jeremy Royds, Royds. "My husband and I were in favor of a hybrid model and were disappointed that this option did not appear to receive adequate consideration. We did not feel that a full return to school would allow for appropriate social distancing, but we are extremely concerned about the detrimental impact remote learning will have on our daughter, who is starting first grade at the Bakey School. Our daughter is on an IEP and was not at all successful with remote learning this spring, despite the best efforts of her amazing teachers. We have no reason thus far to believe that the fall would be any different for her. One statement from a school board member that stood out to us from the last meeting was, 'We will manage the exceptions as they arise.' We appreciate that the board and administration understands that there will need to be exceptions and accommodations made for students with special learning needs. Because teachers, despite best efforts and learnings from the spring, The fact is that there are students like my daughter who will not be successful with remote learning. In-person options must be provided for these students. We are hoping to hear, if not tonight, then very soon, what specifically the district is planning to do to ensure children in our daughter's situation receive FAPE as they are entitled to by law. Our expectations are that accommodations will be made in order for her and children like her to receive as much in-person support as each student requires, aligned with their individualized education plans, in order for them to be successfully access the curriculum and make progress toward their goals, not to fall further and further behind their peers. We understand that the district has a difficult task ahead and hope that the board will fully support the schools so that they can ensure the needs of all students, including those with special learning needs, will be met. Thank you. And so I read that letter because the special education plan is on the agenda this evening, and we thank you for their letter. The next letter was from Kelly Cullivan regarding remote learning. Kelly wrote, with the proposed remote learning plan for the elementary schools, it will be almost impossible for children in different classes and/or grades to be assisted by only one adult at home. Additionally, many parents were preparing to share care, which is taking other children to help parents who have to work and/or for switching off days. With this plan, this isn't possible if children are in separate classes. Even if children are in the same grade, lesson plans are completely different on a daily basis for each classroom. With the amount of assistance my 7-year-old second grader is going to need with work, navigating multiple Zoom calls, lesson instruction, there's no way to take on more children with a completely separate list of expectations for the day. This was a plan that many parents were already setting up and really throws a curveball into the parent preparation for the fall. I did call Kelly and talk to her about this because I wanted to clarify, and I did explain to her that it's impossible for every classroom in the district to offer the exact same lesson because each class has its own dynamics and needs. And really, we've worked for almost the better part of the last 15 years in education to make sure that each classroom is getting what they need, not the exact same lesson. And she did understand that, but I just wanted to acknowledge her letter because it is a concern that as parents are sharing children, the consistency is a challenge. The next letter that I have is from Nicole Ash. Nicole emailed and said she was emailing in regard to school sports because she knew that there was a discussion on the docket tonight. She is pushing for the school board to allow Sanborn to offer fall sports for the children. Her letter went on to read, club sports are fully active right now and have been successful given the measures they have taken to keep the kids safe while mixing kids from different towns and in some sports mixing kids from different states. I have 3 high school students participating in club sports right now with absolutely no issues. One is currently running cross country, which is extremely low risk. Another is playing baseball, which is labeled moderate, and another in soccer, which is also moderate, and again with absolutely no issues to date. Sanborn could use fall sports as a litmus test of having groups of kids interacting to see how our district handles bringing them together safety and monitor how we are affected. Sports are voluntary, so not forcing anyone who does not feel safe to participate. Following the guidelines and using the proper protocols can yield a successful result. School buses are not running with remote learning, so we could use those buses for travel. That may be a sore subject for some, so if that is not workable, then parent-student drop-off would be the answer. Parents will work around getting their children to the destination. Sanborn just needs to offer options for us to play so we can make arrangements for our players. In our new school schedule, we are promoting wellness time. Having the ability to offer sports for those who are interested would be a great wellness time for our children's mental and emotional development, along with having the ability to socialize with their peers, which is a healthy process for our children. We should be doing everything that we can to get these kids back to normalcy while being safe, and club sports has proven it can be safe with the proper protocols. Thanks, Nicole Ash. Mr. Lussier wrote a letter as well about fall sports, so I will read that now. Good afternoon. I'm writing to express my hope that this evening the board will vote to allow our children to play fall sports for Sanborn. I understand that there will be challenges and that it will not be easy, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't try. The club teams are getting it done, which means there is a way, and we should find one too. My daughter, I just found out the other day, everyone, that I need glasses, and I keep forgetting to zoom these, so I'm trying to, hold on a sec. I'll keep reading now. My daughter has been participating in a summer league of field hockey for several weeks now, and there have been 0 issues surrounding this virus. The way that I understand the decision to go remote to begin this year is that too many teachers and parents were not comfortable with going back or sending their child in person. Sports is a little bit different because everyone who is there is aware of any risk associated with attending and chooses to participate. Let those who are uncomfortable sit the season out. There should be clear rules and expectations surrounding the attendance and behavior, and a waiver for parents and athletes. I know that there is much more to it than that, and I am confident that as a community we can work through it. Thank you for your time and considering the impact that your decision will have on all of the students again. Erica Lucier. Okay, I got one more from another parent that I want to read from Vanessa Matias. Vanessa wrote, hello, I wanted to start off by saying that I hope the board is able to find a way to allow for public comment via Zoom or in some other fashion. As with this pandemic extending longer than we expected, we need to find a way to accommodate the public in these meetings. I would like to request this topic to be added to your next meeting. Secondly, regardless of your decision for sports, I urge you to allow the town and rec leagues to use the fields. Other districts have been kind enough to offer Sanborn use of their fields. There is no reason why our fields need to sit there unused. Lastly, I have reviewed the current remote plans, Bakey, middle school and high school. Although I'm still processing the information, I hope that each school has thought about the ease in accessing Zoom calls and meetings and sending the invites via email for the younger grades. It's not an ideal situation. I think, hold on just a second. I'm just going to double check because there have been so many emails. I want to make sure I didn't miss any, okay? I've got another one here from a parent, Chantel Lucas. Chantel is writing to express her opinion about Sanborn participating in fall sports. I'm a mom of 2 kids at the high school. My son, Nick, will be a senior, and my daughter, Abby, will be a sophomore. Both of my children are 3-season athletes, and playing sports has been a part of their lives since preschool. Sports has always been their release of the place where they blow off steam and exercise. Nick and Abby are both honor students, and my husband and I believe that playing sports all these years has helped them with time management and learning to work cooperatively with others on and off the field. My husband and I are both public school teachers in Massachusetts, so we understand the logistics that went into the decision to start school remotely. However, I feel that it will be in the students' athletes' best interest, physically, emotionally, and mentally, to be able to participate in fall sports with COVID-19 guidelines. Many sports have been successfully running this summer, and some with much younger athletes. Recently, it was decided to partner with the YMCA to offer options for Sanborn's youngest students and their working parents to ease the burden of remote learning. I feel that something needs to be done to ease this time for our older students and the families that have supported Sanborn for many years. Thank you for your consideration, Chantel Lucas, Kingston. I just want to remind everyone that if you send me an email and you don't specify that it's for public comment, I will read it and forward it on to the board. The title should say for public comment, or it should say it in the letter. So if I didn't read anyone's, it was only because you didn't specify that it was for public comment. Yes, Tammy.
Can I make an addition? Could you also include the town that you live in your
Oh,
email,
thanks.
comment email, please?
Yes, that's a great point. I'll set up a little, the other thing, it's totally great. I got a lot of communication from families today, and I love that, but I got some letters at 5 minutes of 6. So I'll set up a little protocol for this so that folks know that, like, please submit by noon, please have your town. And Tammy, if you have any other ideas, just shoot me an email, okay? And we'll put it right on the web so that folks know how to access public comment during a remote meeting. There's one more letter that I need to read from the teachers union, but I'm going to read that in the context of the item that it addresses because it would make more sense to do it at that time. So that concludes public comment.
Okay. You have your report too as well?
Jamie has a question. Honestly, I knew there were so many letters. I didn't write a superintendent's report because
Okay.
I felt like that was adequate. You know, the topics tonight are kind of my report. That's all I've been working on.
Okay. Jamie?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that the best way to resolve the issues around public comments and Zoom and everything else is to meet in person. And I would advocate for meeting in person so then we can resolve the public comment issues.
Thank you, Jamie. I'm all set at this point. Thank you, Jim.
Okay. So committee reports. I know that ISA met, I think, Monday, right?
Yep.
And personnel, did you meet today?
No.
No, okay. Okay, so let's go with, I don't think there's been any other meetings since our last meeting. Has anybody else had a meeting?
ISA has actually met twice since the last
ISA
time.
has? Okay.
Since the last
So
time
why
we
don't
had.
Tammy, why don't we start with you?
Okay, so ISA met twice. I don't actually have the date that we met to approve or to discuss the Alma software. We met just after the meeting where we were delegated to review testimonials and just vet that. And we did vote to approve that purchase. And we also met on Monday. The school administrators presented the remote learning plans to the committee. We had quite a lengthy meeting where we asked a lot of questions. I'm not going to go over those because I imagine we'll probably hit them again. If the committee members want to flesh out the information while we're discussing that agenda item from the meeting, I would encourage you to do that.
And your next meeting?
Sometime in September, but I don't have that in front of me, sorry.
Okay, thank you.
4 weeks from today, whatever that is.
Okay. Facilities committee met today at 3:45. We reviewed 3 of the revolving fund balances as of July 31st, 2020. The special education fund balance is $241,088.26. The capital improvement and maintenance fund balance is $172,969.14. There's an additional $50,000 to be added to the fund, which was approved by the voters in March. When that's added, there'll be a total of $222,969.14. The unanticipated educational expense fund balance is $75,164.05. That's a new fund that was started in 2019. There's an additional $75,000 to be added to that fund, which was approved by the voters in March, for a total of $150,164.05. Matt Angel also reported that the lease payments by the Seacoast Learning Collaborative are current through August, and the monthly rent is $11,666.67. The committee reviewed proposals by Business Administrator Matt Angel for several capital improvement plans for Bakey School, ranging from energy savings and climate control to paving. At the next meeting, we'll review capital improvement proposals for Memorial School. And the next facilities meeting will be held on August 19th, 2020 at 3:45 p.m. Consult the SAU17.net website for scheduling and access or location details for any of the committee meetings. I think that's it for committee meetings, I believe. Jake, Student Council report.
Oh, Jamie had his hand up.
What's that?
Jamie has.
Jamie, sorry.
Yeah, for Finance Committee, we haven't met for a while, but we're meeting on September 2nd, I believe is the first Wednesday in September, and we'll be reviewing what was the year-end final numbers for FY20. Where do we stand as regards those sheets that we were tracking in terms of what's the actual spending versus the estimated spending? Where do we stand on the costs associated with the move and the reorganization and the savings, and how are we tracking against those? And then starting the discussions on the 3 areas that we had chosen as a committee to look into further for better understanding was athletics, special education, and IT and online services. So that'll be going on September 2nd.
Thank you.
Jim,
Yes, Pete.
what time and where, Jamie?
That's September 2nd.
September 2nd.
I'd have to check. I'll send it to you, Pete.
Yeah.
I would like to do it in person. It's September 2nd. I'll send you the time. I can't remember the time.
I just got appointed to that committee, so.
Yeah, I'll get that over to you. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Traditionally, it meets at 3:45 p.m. Okay, Jake, are you all set?
Yeah, student council hasn't done anything yet for the 2020 school year, so I have nothing to report on.
Okay, thanks. Tom, remote learning plan.
Great. Thank you very much. We do have a slideshow, and I think it might make sense if Patty, could you do the slides?
Yep, I can do that if I got sharing rights.
Yeah, Gordon can give you sharing rights. And each of our principals are going to present about, our principals did such a good job on Monday night at ISA that they got a second assignment tonight. They were thrilled. They were like, yes, we love this. So they're gonna present for each school, and they'll do a great job, but I'll start with an overview. All right, so just for the public to make sure the public understands, this plan is about the remote learning that will be occurring this fall. We took a look at a lot of information and tried to make a much more robust plan because we could plan carefully, whereas this spring when we were asked to go to remote learning, we literally had a few days notice. So this is a much more robust plan with much higher expectations. So if you could, thank you, Patty. So our mission for remote learning, why does our school exist? And the team felt the answer to that question is learning for all, whatever it takes. And our vision for remote learning, what kind of school do we want to be? Our schools will ensure equity through a robust, flexible, and adaptable remote learning. Sorry, I have to move my people here. There you go. Remote learning model that provides the best possible education for all of our students. Our staff values for remote learning. What do we have? What must we have to achieve our vision? We'll provide the highest possible academic rigor in our students' learning at all times. We will develop meaningful relationships that support student and social and emotional needs. And we will ensure that all students have the resources needed to access their own learning. Patty, could you go to the next slide? So the remote learnings plans, every school's plan addresses teacher, student, and parent expectations, wellness time, Friday independent learning days, grading, communication, attendance and illness, special education and 504s, technology device support, free and reduced lunch meals program, and athletics. And as you'll see on a second agenda item tonight, we also have the special ed programming, which is kind of its own part, even though it's included within the plans. So now I'm going to turn it over to our wonderful principals, and we'll start off with Mr. Snyder.
Thank you. I was muted. So a lot of work has gone into this program, and there are a lot of questions I know that people have asked, and so I'll try to address some of those, and I'm sure there will be more. But our goal is really, in doing this, to create a consistent schedule for our students that will be a combination of virtual meeting times like this on Zoom that we're participating in right now, or on Google Meet. And typically what we would do in an in-school environment, we would start our day once students get settled with a whole class morning meeting. And that's an excellent time for check-ins, to perfect time to build some of that community. And although it's harder to do in a remote environment, it's something that we're intending to make a part of every student's day. It'll kind of set the tone. And then throughout the day, we're hoping that students will have a reading, math, and writing lesson. Those will most likely come in the form of a pre-recorded video from a teacher that students would watch independently. And then following that, there would be scheduled times where they are going to have either small group or maybe even individual instruction that will follow with their teacher or with other staff members. So one of the things that I want to make clear is that when you look at this, it's very easy to look and think that students are going to be staring at a screen from 8:30 in the morning until 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And that's not true. That's not what we're communicating. What it does mean is that there's a certain amount of work expectation that students will do between the hours of 8:30 and 3. But it will come in different chunks, and it'll be a combination of remote instruction, direct instruction from a staff member, and then some independent work. We're very aware that Beakey has the youngest students in the district, and as a result of that, those students are going to need a lot more direct support at home from whoever is there to help them with that. We intend to develop a schedule that will allow everyone at Beakey to have lunch and recess between 11:30 and 12:30. I actually received a parent request saying, I have 3 children that are young, and last year in the spring, it was really difficult to sit down and figure out when everyone had lunch because we were all over the place as far as Zoom meetings. She's like, my one request is if we could just have lunch and recess at a consistent time every day. And so we intend to do that. Students will have a unified art, meaning a special, throughout each day, Monday through Thursday. And what we have found is that our students will, in kindergarten, first and second grade, if they need technology from the district, and we're sorting out who needs that, families have been really good about communicating that to us, they will be using iPads, either that they already have at home or what we give them from the school to use Seesaw. And then our grade 3 students will be using Google Classroom and would use Chromebooks, again, that we would make available if they need to. For example, and I should say this is not the schedule that every grade level will use. It's a potential schedule, but you can see we're building in some screen-free time that's intentional. We utilize something we call WIN, which is what I need, is what we call, that's what that stands for. It's a time of intervention, enrichment, and just addressing students' needs personally. And that involves a number of different staff members. And so at some point during their day, they will have a scheduled WIN time. And then, there will be time again for them to do some independent work, and then potentially an afternoon wrap up that's similar to the morning meeting setting the tone for the day. There's kind of an afternoon wrap up that could happen with our classroom teachers where they kind of close down that day. The other piece that's important to know is that we know that it's not going to work for every family to have every child log in during the live sessions. And so that's one of the biggest drivers for the reading, math, and writing lessons being pre-recorded, knowing that we'll have a number of our students learning outside of that 8:30 to 3 time or getting their work done during those times. And so by having the lessons in that format, families can access them to view and review them as they need to. Oh, sorry, grades 2 and 3. This is a very similar format that you'll see. The difference here is that we would have a higher total amount of work time dedicated for grades 2 and 3 than the kindergarten and first grade students.
So now we would move forward to the next school. Thank you, Mr. Snyder. It's excellent. We now move on to Mr. McCluskey at the Memorial School, which is now grades 4, 5, and 6.
Thank you, Tom. So again, just as Mr. Snyder had shared, this is an example of what a typical remote learning day might look like. This is not what every student's day will look like. Teams are going to kind of work with the time and shape it in a way that's going to work for them. But when we talk about the tight and the loose of a remote learning day, there's going to be some set times, just as Mr. Snyder had mentioned for Beakey, and then there's going to be flexible times to allow students and families to work as their schedules allow. So in this example schedule, you'll see, for example, the 9 to 9:30 time slot. At the end of it, it just says this time will be consistent every day. If you look a little further down where it says 11:30 to 12:30, Again, this is just an example. It might not be those times specifically, but whatever that grade level is, those small group times to meet with teachers would be consistent every day from week to week. So those would be the tights of the remote learning schedule at Memorial. And then you have the flexible times, which are those pre-recorded lessons, which, students could begin watching after their morning meeting. They could begin also engaging in their independent work at that time as well. Some students may not be able to get to it until the afternoon, and that is also fine because it's going to be on Google Classroom and available for students as well as parents who may need to watch or sometimes even rewatch a pre-recorded lesson. Pre-recorded lessons are going to be referred to as mini lessons, which means that they're going to be somewhere in the vicinity of 10 minutes in length. Teachers aren't recording 30-minute lectures or 45-minute lectures. It's a 10-minute mini lesson, which follows the workshop model that our teachers have been engaged in, receiving professional development in, and are very comfortable using. So I think that's an important piece. Students aren't going to be watching long videos of teachers, just short mini lessons. And with that said, again, we're trying to really maximize the flexibility for family schedules. And I'm trying to make sure I didn't miss anything important here. Memorial School is a Chromebook school for grades 4, 5, and 6. Students will be engaging with their teachers through Google Classroom, as well as Google Meet or Zoom for those live sessions. And we have a list from families that have requested technology, and we are working to get that organized so that we'll be able to hand that out before the first day of school. But that is, in a nutshell, Memorial School's remote learning plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCluskey. And next up is Christine DeRocher, our new grade 7 and 8 principal, former assistant principal. Welcome, Christine.
Thank you. So for the middle school remote learning schedule, this is the actual schedule for the 7th and 8th grade students. Each day they would begin in an advisory, which would be about 30 minutes long. And basically the advisory would pair students with adults, and they would be meeting at the beginning of each school day. And the part of it is to provide academic and social and emotional mentorship. There's 2 goals within advisory. The first is to create personalization within the school and also to be able to facilitate a small peer community of learners. From advisory, the students would then go to various cores depending on if it's a gray day or a blue day. So there's a 2-day schedule here. What we really tried to do is focus on feedback from staff, feedback from parents about how many rotations was too much, how many classes was too much, the time frame for kids. So we tried to really reflect that in our schedule for the remote learning. For class, the class breakdown, kiddos will be logging in to Google Classroom. When your child logs into Google Classroom, all of my teachers, all of my core teachers are going to have their Google Classrooms set up the exact same way. So that way parents will be able to navigate it and it's familiar to them. It's nothing that science is set up this way, math is set up this way. It's set up the same way throughout their core classes. They would begin with a check-in and welcome, the review of today's goals. This is what we're learning today. This is what we're going to do. And then students would be able to watch a pre-recorded direct instruction video for 10 minutes. And again, that's something that Chris and Ryan already spoke to in regards to a mini lesson. So this is going to provide students with an opportunity to review the video multiple times if necessary, based on their personal needs. It also permits parents to view the video at a later time in order to assist their child as needed. Then students are going into breakout rooms. These breakout rooms, a teacher will conduct check-ins with small groups of students. This is a time for when the teacher is going to be checking for understanding. Students at this time will be applying what they've learned, and they're going to be able to reach out to the teacher for support or direct questions. Students will be rotating through activities while practicing their skills for mastery. Intervention would also be embedded during these times So these intervention teachers would be part of the small groups, working with those specific students based on various data points and how we would mark them as a tier 2 or tier 3 learner. Then kiddos would be part of a wrap up for 10 minutes and review the lesson, be able to set the stage for the next class. Students would also then complete an exit ticket, probably about a couple minutes long. And this exit ticket is going to provide quick feedback for the teachers on each student's learning progress. And then on here, you'll see lunch and a break. So again, it's a 30-minute lunch. That break time is screen-free time. They're able to take a break, enjoy the outdoors, shoot some hoops, etc. And then the students would then go to their unified arts, which is a world language, art, tech, wellness, band, etc. And that format would be very similar formula to the core classes.
Thank you very much. Next up is Mr. Stack, grades 9 to 12.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, everybody. Thank you to our previous speakers, the principals. You did a really great job explaining your models and also kind of hinting at some of the pieces of my models. So I'm not going to reiterate some of the things that you said. Christine spoke very eloquently about how we move from engagement to meaningful engagement in different ways with teachers with some different instructional strategies. So many of the things that Christine mentioned, my teachers at the high school will also be looking at in the context of their subjects, courses, and different grade levels. So I did want to spend a few minutes talking about our schedule. So for those of you familiar with what we did in the spring, we did have what we call synchronous schedule, meaning that students attend live classes via Zoom or Meet like this, certain days, certain periods. So we are going to be continuing that practice of having synchronous live classes. So students take 8 classes in their schedule over the course of a week. They will get each of those courses twice for an hour on either Monday and Wednesday or Tuesday and Thursday. We also have some daily time built in for FLT, which stands for Focused Learning Time. That's when we offer our intervention, enrichment, and reteaching, the time when students can choose to work with certain teachers or be chosen by teachers to work with them. We have an advisory piece built into our day that actually happens first thing in the morning. That'll be a time for teachers to check in with students in smaller settings, make sure that they have all of their academic as well as their social emotional learning needs met. And if not, make sure that they reach out to the appropriate staff members so that we don't have kids falling through the cracks. We also have a wellness time built in during the middle of the day, and that's also a break time where students and staff will be able to get something to eat. Fridays, more independent day, just like they are at the other levels. Students will have a lot of work to be working on, not just live, but also things outside of the classroom. Teachers will be doing some planning and holding office hours as well. Now, SST, this is a bit of a change from what we had in the spring. So our schedule in the spring was not aligned in such a way so that SST was able to offer synchronous programming in the situation where they're either in person or remote. So they had to do what they call asynchronous, meaning students get work that they can complete over a period of time, but there isn't live instruction. So we did make sure with our schedule that we are aligned with SST's schedule. Now, if SST were to make a change to their schedule, which could happen, we would obviously make a similar adjustment in ours. So to show you what this looks like from a student perspective, I'll just give you 2 sample schedules. So we have a 9th grade student named Biff. Our 9th graders take math and English. I was waiting for somebody to get it. Thank you, Tom.
That was great.
I was going to say Biff might learn a little bit about manure and physical science. Got to lighten
make like a tree and get out of here.
It might make like a tree and get out of here. So you can see in Biff's schedule, he's got his core classes built in there, his wellness time, daily FLT time, and Biff does not participate in SST. So really that last column is a moot point. However, our 12th grade student, Lorraine Baines, thank you. I'll be here all week.
Calvin Klein.
Lorraine Baines McFly does participate in the animal and plant program at SST. That happens regularly for Lorraine during periods 6, 7, and 8. And the schedule is aligned so that from 12 o'clock on, Lorraine's able to do that. Now, SST is going to be in person. As of right now, that's the plan. We have surveyed our parents and students who are part of the SST program to find out what their transportation needs are. And we're working on a plan to be able to get our students to SST. And we do recognize that there may be some extended commuting times. So obviously we'll have to make some adjustments along the way. All of our students will be operating with Chromebooks. We'll be distributing those to 9th graders, but that's sort of the basics of our plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stack. I did want to just take a moment to mention that people will notice that there's a change in the flexible day for students to do independent work and for teacher collaboration has been moved from Wednesday to Friday. And of course, I certainly received questions like, well, what does that mean? The teachers get a 3-day weekend and what's going on? And the answer is absolutely not. The whole purpose was that we felt for the younger learners, we had quite a lively discussion about this. And I want the community to hear that for the younger learners in particular, consistency is really, really important, but it's true for all learners. So we felt that after reflecting on taking Wednesdays as the independent learning day, we felt that Friday was a better day because you'd get 4 days of data and information about instruction. And then the teachers can meet in their professional learning communities on Fridays and check in with students and prepare the next 4 days' lessons and be far more effective as teachers. I just want to ask team, did I cover the basics of that? Is there anything you'd like to add?
There's also the piece that we did have the availability of a lot of different consultants and people to come in to work directly with teachers, and they were available on Fridays because of the way that their schedules worked out. And so for mathematics, for English language arts, reading and writing, there's a lot of support that's going to be coming into the district on Fridays, and this works out perfectly.
Thank you very much, Patty. All right, so I will progress on to Jody Gutterman for Special Education Services in 504.
Thank you, Mr. Ambrose. Good evening, everybody. So I know there have been a lot of questions regarding special education. So we have been working tirelessly on a plan to hopefully support all of our students. So case managers will continue to still be the main point of contacts for students with IEPs. Right now, people will be contacting some of the special education coordinators and assistant principals as well. But starting next week, your case managers will be the point of contact. Special education services will continue to be provided during remote learning. They'll be delivered in multiple modalities, which may include in-person. And attached to this plan, there is a protocol for in-person services. It's a 4+ page document that will be available and put onto the website later for the student service section, as well as it will be available once this PowerPoint gets posted as well, because there is a link for it. All decisions regarding services as outlined in IEP plans will be made on individual case-by-case student needs through the IEP team process. Services will still be provided throughout for remote. So if you've had some remote services, you continue to have probably some remote services. Also, services will be delivered during the scheduled times for each building. So if your student is scheduled to be in school remotely from 8:30 to 3, services will take place during various blocks of time during that 8:30 to 3 schedule. Parents and guardians of students with disabilities who have an IEP will be contacted starting next week by the special education coordinator or teacher to discuss next steps. Thank you, Patty. So here again is the link for the full proposal. What I've done here is I have just bulleted some of the main components of the plan. So factors to be considered when making these determinations will look at the degree of services outlined in the IEP, safety concerns for the student and staff. I know that I have been contacted from multiple parents at this point asking questions, and I thank all of them because they've been very patient as I've been asking them for a little bit more time to figure out this plan and asking them to wait until the school board hopefully adopts the plan this evening. But we would be looking at the safety concerns. Some parents are not comfortable sending their children to school, and we're going to work with them on that. And some parents are comfortable sending their students to school. And if the IEP team process determines that the student has needs that require in-person services, we would be looking at delivering that. Also, we'd be looking at the engagement with remote instruction and how their child's disability might restrict that engagement. In the plan, there are various components. So you look at services. In the service section, we're really talking about the safety precautions that we're taking, as well as well the health and safety. So the first two areas kind of look at, you know, what services might look like and what safety protocols are in place. So what PPE are we requiring individuals to wear? So all staff will be required to wear face masks at a minimum. And then there are different scenarios where, depending on the level of service that you're getting, also requires additional protective equipment to be worn by the staff member. The expectation is that children wear masks, although we also understand that some students coming in are not going to be able to maintain wearing masks the entire time. Evaluations, we have been, for our triannual evaluations, we have been reviewing some past information because we weren't able to come together in the spring and do face-to-face evaluations. We are going to start doing face-to-face in-person evaluations moving forward. So referrals will be conducted, as well as triannual evaluations will be conducted in person with protocols in place. Our psychologists have asked to do all the evaluations at the high school, so that will be happening at the high school level, and other evaluations for other services and areas of need will be looked at the various building that your child attends. One thing about evaluations is that I want to try to explain to you a little bit about what it looks like, but a lot of the evaluations can be done digitally. So we are looking at having the teacher, the provider, or the psychologist providing the evaluation. They would be looking at a digital protocol on their computer. Their computer would then be set up to another screen, which would be between, in most instances, 6 to 10 feet away from the child. The child would then be looking at that other screen, and they would be vocally and orally responding to those questions, but there would be enough distance in between the evaluator and the student. In some instances, you're going to have the student and the evaluator closer, but for some of the evaluations, that's the safety precaution that we're taking for evaluations. Transportation is a component that we are still working on. Right now, I have been working with Durham Services. They are our special education transportation company. They have been asking for up to 3 weeks notice for transportation. So I'm just letting parents know that and asking parents to help us with the transportation needs. We will do our best to provide transportation if it's determined by the IEP team that your child needs transportation should your child be having in-person services. But we may initially be asking parents to help transport until we have enough buses to do so. Paraeducator expectations. We are working on a plan right now of explicitly what that looks like, but the expectation is that the paraeducators will be working either remotely or in person to support students. And then meetings, many of you have seen executive orders by the governor. There is order number 48 and 64, if you have not already seen them, that have certain requirements of special education. One of those requirements is that within the first 30 days of school opening, that every child with an IEP is offered a IEP meeting to talk about compensatory education. There is going to be a letter going out hopefully by the end of this week, if not early next week, but I'm really hopeful it'll be going out by the end of this week. It'll be going out to every family that has a child with an IEP. If you have multiple children in the system, you'll be getting multiple letters, and it will be asking you if you are interested in having the meeting within the next 30 days, if you plan on attending, if you don't plan on attending but still want the team to meet without you, if you would like to postpone it or waive it. The reason for postponing it is that for some students, we might not know if they need compensatory education because you're going to be with a new team of teachers and it takes time for that child to really get to know those teachers. So we're not sure that within 30 days for all students, we're going to be able to answer the question if they require additional services. So we have given parents the opportunity to say that they would like more time. And then for our in-person services, they will start on Tuesday, September 15th. So school starts on Tuesday, September 8th. Remote services will start that day as well. We're asking for an additional week to figure out the details of in-person, make sure we have appropriate protective equipment in place. Hopefully we can have transportation worked out by then, and also to allow some of our providers a little bit more time to conduct some of those meetings, because we have over 330 meetings that we need to offer within the first 30 days of school. If you have questions, like I said, your case managers will be back next week, but the best people to reach out to right now, besides myself, are your special education coordinators and assistant principals. So they're listed on this slideshow. Section 504, your school counselors will continue to be the main point of contacts for students with 504 plans. Again, they will be around starting next week. They will be reaching out to parents and guardians and adult students to discuss any specific individual needs regarding your child's 504 plan. 504 plans are still active. However, given the nature of remote instruction, the plans might need to be changed. They might look different. Certain accommodations might not be needed in a remote learning environment, and there might be additional accommodations that are needed for children in a remote learning environment. So you'll be hearing from your counselors regarding the current plans and if there need to be changes. And then this is a list of who you would contact regarding your 504 plans. I would like to note that Angelica is listed under Bakey and Memorial. She is primarily working at Bakey. She has been assigned to Memorial a little bit. I believe it's 1 day at Memorial and 4 days at Bakey. I'm not sure how many 504 plans she's going to be overseeing, but I wanted to add her on here in case you need her contact information.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jody.
Thank you.
So there are additional considerations that the administrative team has considered. One is certainly recognizing that we have had a lot of staff changes based on the reorganization, and some folks that may have been at Bakey are now at Memorial and vice versa, and some folks switched grade levels. So we are trying to figure out are actively working on Meet the Teacher events, and our staff will be, obviously everything will be done with appropriate PPE and social distancing. I want to be clear that we're not going to have events where everyone's just in the building walking around. It would be by appointment and very carefully set up. That would include materials distribution and device pickups. We are still working on the SST transportation for the high school students. It's important to recognize that during the time of COVID, it is very difficult to fit very many students in a bus. So we'll be working very carefully on that. We are also working collaboratively with internships and ELOs at the high school to make sure that safety measures are implemented. And we continue to work collaboratively with the state on academic testing. The SAT seems to be running this fall at this time, but we are looking at the variety of ways that we could administer that examination while maintaining social distancing. That'll be an upcoming item. So I want to thank everyone for your attention. And there is one outstanding item that needs to be discussed this evening as part of our reentry plan. I know that everyone heard Ms. Gutterman say that some staff from the special education department will have to provide in-service, in-person services due to student need. The question is also before the board as part of this plan. Are we going to ask our teachers to return to teach from the school district, and or would they continue to teach from home and then only come to the building to get supplies and materials? So I'd like to take this conversation in two parts. The first part is I'm asking for a motion from the school board to adopt the remote learning plan that was just presented to you. Once there's a motion and a second, then we can have discussion and then a vote on that. And then I'm asking for a motion and discussion on the location that remote instruction will occur from. Will it be at the schools? Will it be part at the schools at home? And I'll talk more about that in a moment. So would someone be willing to make a motion to accept the remote learning plan as presented by the administrative team?
So moved.
Thank you, Dawn.
Second.
Larry seconded. Thank you, Larry. And so the administrative team is here, and please ask questions of any of our team.
Discussion, questions? Jamie?
Yeah, so first I want to thank the folks for the delivery. I got a number of questions, but I also want to point out that I concur with Tom. I see this as two different items. One is content, one is delivery, is how I had framed it in my mind. I do have a motion on delivery. So I would request that when we get to delivery, I get called upon to make the motion on delivery. But the question that we have on the table right now is on content. And so my question would be, it's still not clear, and I think that would be true in the community also, as to what a day entitles, what happens. So you see things that say 10 to 15 minutes. And so I've got a half an hour meeting, and then I have 10 to 15 minutes, and then there's a 2-hour block of independent learning. And there's teachers coming in and there'll be workshops, but how exactly I think it still needs fleshing out, and maybe we're not there yet, but it's not something I think that people at home can sink their teeth in and say, tell me how this is going to be different and better than the spring. And I think we need to flesh that out some more.
Sure. I'll actually take that one. And I do want to say that I haven't had a chance to watch Mr. McCluskey's video yet, but Mr. Snyder made a fantastic video for the community explaining that exact topic through the eyes of a Bakey student. So I think it's really important. I'll give a brief overview, and then if any of the team would like to chime in, I want everyone to think about instruction. So we believe in a workshop model of instruction, and a workshop model of instruction means that a student receives a short burst of a lesson at the beginning of the workshop. Let's just say, for the sake of this presentation, that the workshop is 60 minutes. The first 10 minutes would be what's called a mini lesson. And then during the workshop instruction, whether it's math, reading, or science or social studies, whatever the topic is, the student would have independent work that they're working on. In reading and social studies, they would often be reading text, writing about what they've read, and then at some point sharing their thoughts about what they've read with another person. In science, it may be an experiment or a project. In math, it may be problem solving. What will happen is the student will be working. So I'll be the student, and if Mr. Stack is my teacher, Mr. Stack would come on and do one of his fancy videos. I'd watch it and learn, and for me, I'd probably rewind it twice because I would get lost somewhere. But I could watch it more than once because it's pre-recorded. And then I would start to work on my work, and then I would know that 20 minutes later, I have my conference call with Mr. Stack. So from the student's perspective, the student is doing their independent work and then conferring with their teacher during the workshop, and then having the workshop closing. For Mr. Stack has the video lesson, and then Mr. Stack is meeting with small groups of 4 or 5 students independently throughout the whole hour. So for the teacher, they're engaged with kids on Zoom calls the whole time, but for the kids, their work, they have a combination. So I've had a lot of moms and dads email me and say, that is too much screen time. And my response has been, no, it's not an hour of screen time. It's 10 minutes of screen time, and then the work that you need to do, which is authentic, real work. And when I say authentic, real work, I mean reading real books, writing about topics, or reading substantive articles, or doing science projects, or meaningful math work. And then I confer with my teacher. So if you look at the way we built this model, and one of the primary things that we realized did not go well last spring is we felt that kids needed to have an opportunity to review the lesson and an opportunity to get help at feedback multiple times throughout the day. Leaving the kids with their work alone to just do it doesn't work. So we felt that connecting with kids regularly throughout the day would be really, really important to moving the model forward from what it was this spring. So I think that I'm really proud of what the team has done, but Jamie, I hear you that does not come through when you look at a paper schedule.
Right.
And so each principal is making a video to kind of explain what I just said, but now there's kind of a video anyway, because I just made one. But I think anybody who does this will experience a real shift. The trick for moms and dads is going to be, don't get up from the table. Your lesson's not done. You need to read your book now, because your teacher's going to be calling in a few minutes, or you're going to get on your Zoom call. And so we have to make sure that the kids, and to Kelly Cullivan's point when she emailed us, it would be great if we knew that they're kid sharing, if we can pair the kids up to have their call at the same time, or work things out to try to, help as best we can. I mean, we want to be collaborative. We know that this is hard. But we also recognize that the only way to keep the engagement up is to regularly connect with kids all day long. And so teachers will be regularly connecting with kids all day long, which also helps us to keep an eye on their social and emotional needs. So it's a win-win on both fronts. And honestly, Jamie, I'm so excited about the great work that our team has done. I can't wait. I'll always say it. There's no replacement for in-person regular school. It's an important part of the fabric of our society, but I am really proud of the work this team has done. And I'm really looking forward to early October, late September, those parent coffee meetings when we hear from parents. I'm sure that some of them are going to say this is way too much. But I think also it'll be interesting to hear about what the kids are doing and what they're learning, because honestly, I'm so proud of this. I'm hopeful that it's replicatable for other communities if it works for us. I'm really excited. Well, I mean, I'm always really excited. You know me. Did anyone else want to chime in to help? Did I cover it?
Hey.
Anybody else? I've got a question, Tom. What assessments or evaluations are going to be employed, and at what frequency, to determine what of these what of these efforts, to what extent they're working and to what extent they need to be improved?
I'll let Dr. Haynes answer that, Jim, because that's her bailiwick.
Yep. So we've got an extensive assessment plan that was actually on the agenda to discuss at ISA on Monday, but we didn't get there because we had such a robust discussion about the remote learning plan. But what we've got are a number of assessments. The first one that we use and we have used regularly is the NWEA Map Assessment. And that looks at student growth to see how they're doing from year to year. Now, that assessment cannot be given before 4 weeks of instruction have gone by. So at the earliest, once we get students into a system and get them, in a routine, the earliest we can start testing them is going to be October 6th. And that's going to look at their reading, writing, and math skills. And that's going to happen for all of our students from grades 1 through 10, like we do every year. Another assessment that this year the state is requiring because of the oddity that happened last year and the suspension of any of the statewide assessments is the New Hampshire Statewide Assessment System. It's the SAS, but these are the interim assessments, which would be in the middle of learning. And these would be happening for students in grades 4 through 8, but those students would actually be taking the previous year's assessment. So a fourth grader would be taking third grade assessment to sort of give the state a big overview statewide to see how the students did in remote learning. So if they're a fourth grader now, they're actually going to be measuring them to see how far they got along with their third grade assessments. So that's another piece that we're going to be using. We've got the SAT, which is a state mandated assessment that's going to be happening, and we've got a number of dates, and we're still trying to work out how that's going to look. But that will be happening for our 12th graders who should have taken it last year as 11th graders. They'll be taking it in the fall instead of last spring. Students will also be going through the regular running record assessments for Fountas and Pinella that they usually have every school year. The beginning date for that would be around October 15th, which would be when the board would be making a decision about where we're going further based on data and transmission rates in the state and in the area. So we're going to be looking at how those are going to be conducted. We're also going to be doing some regular formative assessments, and what formative assessments do for folks who might not understand what that means is formative assessment looks at literally how the student is forming that understanding in their brains, and it's used for the teachers to inform what they need to teach on. So they're going to be teaching a little bit. They're going to give them a quick sort of dipstick test, see how you're doing. Oh, you got it. We can move forward. Oh, you didn't get it. We've got to go back and reteach. In addition to that, we've got some kindergarten screening going on September 1st, 2nd, and maybe on the 3rd if they don't get it all done. Part of the kindergarten screening this year, because of the weird situation that we're in with remote learning, is also going to include the dyslexia screener that has to happen for all kindergarten students. So that will be part of the kindergarten screening so that the teachers will know right away at the beginning where their children are as far as needing reading readiness help and those kinds of support. So we do have a number of different assessments that we're going to have in place. I'm very confident that our teachers are going to have the information that they need. But the one thing that we have to remember is that we've got to get everybody used to this new system of learning, and we really don't want to start testing our kids right out of the gate. We've got to get them used to the situation, get them comfortable, really pay attention to their social emotional learning, make sure that they know how to use their computers, make sure they know where to find their assignments. So there's a lot of things that are going to be happening. And so the NWEA will be a remote assessment, and so will the New Hampshire statewide assessment, interim assessment. Those will be remote and they can be done on the computer.
On the formative assessments, what would be the frequency of those?
That would be dependent upon how the teachers' units are being planned. So when they've presented a piece of essential understanding or knowledge that the students need to master, if they present it once, they might want to do a formative assessment right then, or they might want to give kids a chance to practice and then test them. That's all going to be dependent on the way that the teachers feel those need to be assessed. And that's generally what they do in the classroom anyway. It's no different than what they would usually do just to check for understanding.
And that would give you a fairly frequent snapshot of how well these programs are working.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we'll know right away, this is working, this isn't working, we need to recalibrate, we're going too fast, we're going too slow. So we're really going to have, we gather in a regular classroom on a regular normal day, we gather a lot of information about our students. Not everything gets dumped into a grade book and gets graded, and it shouldn't be, because
Right.
we're looking at how they're progressing. It's no different than, going out for soccer drills on the field. If you're moving the ball with your feet, you're not really getting graded and you're not scored on that. You're learning how to drive. You don't know how to do a K turn. They're not going to say, oh, you can't get a license. You keep practicing it till you get better. So that's the same idea with formative assessments.
And then what about on the instruction side, as far as kind of, tracking the instruction and teachers that are struggling with this remote delivery or need help? Yeah, Brian. Yeah.
Brian, yep.
I think Brian's muted.
No, I know. I was waiting to get permission to be unmuted. That's a great question, Jim. So we are talking as a leadership team about how we're going to be conducting teacher observations and evaluations and coaching with our staff, because we recognize that's going to be an ongoing piece of our model. Regularly, in a normal year, we'd be walking through classrooms on a regular basis, giving feedback, meeting with teachers and such. So we will be doing that in a virtual format, and it'll look a little different as far as the schedule in every building. Administrators also will continue to regularly attend team meetings and work with teachers that way, and we'll be making use of some specialists that we have both in-house and through consultants as necessary across the district to help with some different training. We also know we have a lot of in-house expertise. We have a lot of teachers who have worked in similar models in the past, who have made use of these kinds of practices even pre-COVID in their classes. So we're looking for some different ways to showcase some of their talents. We're putting together like a sharing festival to start the year, where we'll have some of our teachers with tips to share, have an opportunity to do that, almost like a mini conference that our teachers will attend virtually so that they can be practicing these skills virtually, wherever they're at, but just in the actual virtual format, since that's what the training's for. So it's going to be ongoing, because the way that Tom described the workshop model really applies whether it's in person or remote, but there are definitely some challenges to a remote environment, just like we've all experienced and you experienced as a school board learning how to work remotely. Pete's chuckling over there, so I know he's learned a lot about Zoom along the way.
So I know there's some professional development coming up, the 25th, 26th, 27th, and also September 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, I think. Is this going to be included in that?
So what's happening is that what Brian was just talking about is happening on the 25th, on the 26th and 27th, in addition to some of the team grade level or content level conversations and professional work that they do. They're also going to get trained in the Alma gradebook. That'll be happening on those 2 days. You've got kindergarten screening going on September 1st and 2nd, but teachers are also going to be meeting to discuss how they're going to deploy some of the testing that they're going to be doing later on, how they're going to be setting up different lessons, what they need to do to get their students ready to get into their classroom materials and things like that. So there'll be a lot of that happening on those 6 days. And having the 6 days really, really has alleviated some of the pressure folks were feeling, because even for the younger students, they need to have kits put together for math manipulatives. You've got to maybe cut up all these little things. Well, yeah, you could sit and watch TV and cut up a bunch of stuff. I used to do it when I taught kindergarten. But if I'm doing it and I've got to get it done tomorrow and I've got to cut up 65 different things for each kid, I can't get it done in a day. So having this extra time is going to be really helpful, giving them time to talk to each other, giving them time to talk to other people in the district who've tried different things, and really put these things to use and really practice with, dummy classroom sessions and things with, their peers, just to try them out for each other.
And then I've got one last question. As far as the example of showing a video in the beginning of the day, 10-minute video with instruction, and then the kids can watch that and they can repeat it again if they want to, repeat it again if they want to. But then there's going to be time for phone calls with your instructor or online communication with your instructor. How many children can an instructor actually communicate with in that span of remaining time?
Depends on the size of the class and the age of the students. Usually you confer with, so if you have reading every day in a first grade classroom, you would usually confer with 2 groups of 4 and sometimes some individuals. So you might be able to get 3 groups of 4 depending on each group and how the day goes. But remember too that the recorded lessons at the beginning of each lesson is happening primarily because we had a number of parents express concern that they wouldn't be able to get on the Zoom call at the correct time.
Right.
So we're trying to accommodate some of them by allowing them to watch the lessons later in the day if they need to. Typically that lesson would be live, Jim. Yeah. And everyone would be like we are right now. Like if you were my class, I would say, good morning, everyone. Today's lesson is, and then I demonstrate and you'd ask questions. But we're trying to meet that need for the parents that can't be there every day at exactly the same time.
Yeah.
The other nice thing about having that recorded lesson is if the student needs to rewatch it, they can rewatch it, but the parent can also watch the video when they're helping their child with the assignment later on in the day. If it's been a while since they've studied chlorophyll and photosynthesis, all right, let's watch the video. Let's figure out what's going on in the leaf while this is happening. Okay, now we can talk about this and I can help my child with the assignment that they've got. So it's something that I can see them even using when we're back to face and teachers can have the videos done and the kids can watch it at home and really I see what's coming down the road with this is we've really killed the snow day. I mean, I hate to say it, and I know children across America are all crying, but at least the northern tier of the country, but we've really killed the snow day because we can put this out there, the kids can keep working. And, it just learning won't stop. There's no need for us to stop the learning.
Could I also say that just as a parent of a high school student, I found those videos, which the fancy term is asynchronous. It means that you can watch it whenever you need to. The simple term is it's a YouTube video that you can watch at home. But I had to watch a number of algebra videos last year with my son because it's been 30 years. So I just felt like, I really appreciated that. Even it's not just the little kids is what I'm saying, is it's for everyone. And just before we close this discussion, or whenever you're ready, I mean, we're happy to take more questions. I want to remind everyone that I had a very clear conversation with the administrative team when the board talked about remote, that it is very important to us as a team that remote learning, that we take the lemons of the situation that we're in and turn it into, we're going to skip lemonade and go straight to lemon gelato, right? Like we're trying to maximize whatever we can from this situation and do the appropriate professional development so that, as Patty said, those same techniques could be used when we're back in person. What kid doesn't like to go home at night and see their math lesson again and think about it while they're doing their math homework? I would have loved that as a kid, because being able to slow it down or speed it up can really make a big difference for some people. So our goal is to steal everything from this time in education and use it moving forward to make us even better in the future. So we're just trying to use everything that we do as a way to get better, because we recognize that we can't control the circumstance, but we can control our attitude and how we respond to it. And so we've taken a very positive, hardworking, proactive stance.
Anybody else have any questions or comments? Dawn?
Yeah, I just wanted, I newly on the ISA committee, so I was there on Monday when this was presented, and I just wanted to say thank you to everyone for all the hard work that was put in. I want to say thank you for listening to parents and student input on this, because you guys really, I know a lot of things that my students struggled with. I definitely saw you guys put those issues into the plan and really, take care of them. So, thank you for all parents. I think you guys did a great job with that. And I also wanted to say thank you to Chris and Ryan, because kind of threw them under the bus on Monday and said, could you please put a schedule out there for us? So we had a rough idea of what it looks like. So thank you guys for doing that. I know it's not, like Jamie said, it doesn't give you exactly clear cut what exactly the day is going to look like, but it's going to be extremely different for every student and every grade level and every classroom. So giving something that's clean and concise, detailed, it's next to impossible. So I appreciate that you guys put in the effort to put something like that together so we parents can have at least a rough idea of what the day is going to look like. So thank you for that. Thank you, everyone.
Anybody else? Okay, I've one more from me. Those videos that are on YouTube, I assume that they're going to be archived and someone could look at it on the weekends or anytime, right?
Absolutely. Yep. We're hoping to hold on to them for as long as we need them. We could be using them next year, 2 years from now.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So no further discussion. I'd ask for a motion to approve the remote learning plan.
Jim, we have a motion on the floor. I think we just need a vote.
Yeah, we just need a vote.
Yeah, we got a motion and a second, right?
Yes.
All right. So again, it's as people appear on my screen. Jamie?
Aye.
Larry?
Aye.
Charlie?
Aye.
Tammy?
Yes.
Dawn?
Yes.
Pete?
Yes.
And yes for myself.
Thank you. Could we now tackle the issue? Jamie had a motion that he wanted to make regarding the locations and whatnot.
Go ahead, Jamie.
So I move that the school board direct that remote learning be done by teachers from classrooms to ensure the best possibility for an improved delivery of the educational services to our children during the time that we are remote.
Okay. Can I get a second on that? Tammy? Okay. Any discussion? Jamie?
Yeah, so number of things driving this that I want to talk about. Why do I think the teachers need to be in school? So it's not that I don't trust teachers. It's not that I think that all kinds of bad things happen when they're at home. Remote is not the optimum. In person's the optimum. I tried to advocate for that in an impassioned way. On the 29th, we're on remote. So what we have to do until the 15th at a minimum is make remote better and make it much better than it was, and utilize the benefits that we were anticipating from the reorganization, the collaborativeness, the PLCs, all the grades together to work to deliver a better educational experience for our kids. And that was what the intent was. In my opinion, spring delivery and content was just not acceptable. The amount of learning that occurred, future cumulative learning, was not acceptable. It wasn't what we needed to be. Now, that's not to say that the teachers and the staff didn't do a good job. It's to say in an emergency situation without planning, people did the best that could be expected, but the end result still was lacking. Remote didn't get us what we needed to achieve. I am aware that this may cause people some personal issues. Particularly, I'm aware that there's going to be concerns about childcare. Well, wait a minute. I'm going to now have to find childcare. And I'm sympathetic to that. I really am. And I understand that concern. But we also have 1,600 children and families that are in school that also have had to face that and also have to deal with that. And we voted to have them do that. And they have been very vocal in the difficulties that causes. And I understand the difficulties for them. And I understand there'll be some of the same difficulties for teachers. Nonetheless, that's a path that we've decided as a board to go down. And I think we need to proceed down there now with the focus of, while we're in remote, what do we do, this district, what do we do to make sure that our children are getting the best education possible? And I think that needs to be a focused effort. And I just don't see an ability to have a focused effort if at this time I'm at home, not only trying to teach remotely, but being interrupted with my own activities and my own childcare. And let's face it, if I'm a teacher and my child is in remote and he's struggling, I'm going to have a natural predisposition to go over and help them and to teach them at the same time. So I think that it's just natural that that's the trend that would happen. So on the other hand, as I mentioned, I advocated on the 29th. We are presently sitting, as we're going into remote, with 0 cases in Kingston, 0 cases in Newton, 1 to 4 cases, and I believe the number is 1, but it shows up on the map of 1 to 4 cases in Fremont. But for the younger kids' grades, it's 0 cases. And with 0 cases staring us in the face, we're going remote. We need to start on the path of eventually being able to be in person. Part of that is that we need the teachers to be preparing for and getting ready to be in classes with students. And the starting point is to leverage the remote learning capabilities by having everybody together. And there's plenty of room for social distancing. There was great concern on the 29th. One of the major items discussed on the 29th was teachers' concerns about their health, about not wanting to be in person. So that was one of the major concerns that led to remote. There were also concerns about how are we quarantining and what are we going to do when things happen? And should we wait for other schools to see what they do in the other direction? So there's more factors in that, but that was a very big factor, is teachers concerned about health. That concern is gone. We're remote. The building was designed for a lot more people than we're talking about being present. Plenty of opportunity for complete distancing, much more so than in most industries that have to start back up because they're essential businesses. This is pretty essential, teaching children. And if we're going to improve the remote experience, I think we need to have the teachers there. The goal is we need to be back in person as soon as we can be. And hopefully we'll see that the other schools don't experience the concerns that were expressed on the 29th and we get to going back. Tom mentioned one of the concerns that had brought up by the parents, and he addressed Fridays and 3-day weekends. So from a business perspective, when we have people that come in and they say they want to work remote, one of the things we try to do is avoid Fridays. Why do you try to avoid Fridays? The perception becomes one of, just as Tom's already heard, it's a 3-day weekend. There's no such perception if you're actually at the school working. So that takes that right off the table. And I do think it makes sense to have Fridays because, to Tom's point, you get 4 days of data sets, 4 days of feedback, 4 days of collaborating about what is his experience on that 5th day. And then you make the following week better than the previous week. And then you do that again and you make the following week better than the previous week. I don't see that kind of activity is going to be as possible, as effective, as good for our students in ensuring their education if we do not have everybody teaching together collaboratively from the classes for the students, for our students that staff and the teachers are there to support. So I strongly advocate that we direct that the teachers come back to the school buildings and teach remote from there to provide a step function difference in the remote learning that our children will receive. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else?
Tom has his hand up.
Oh, let's hear from the board, though. Anybody else on the board have anything?
Yeah.
Larry.
I have a question. One of the comments that was made back on the 20, whatever it was, that we had approximately half the teachers that did not want to come back yet, did not want to do face-to-face or anything. My question is, how many teachers are we going to lose in the next 2 weeks if we do force them to come back into the building? Tom, I guess that question's to you.
Yeah, the union did. So part of why I had my hand up was that if you remember back in the public comment, I retained the letter that the union wrote regarding this topic for now. So I would like to read that letter, and I would like to share some data that they compiled with regard to that. But I want everyone to understand before I read the letter that the administrative team discussed this issue at length. And our recommendation to the school board is that if the school board wants the teachers to come back to the school to teach, that they consider that, people did, right or wrong, feel that when they were told that we were going to be remote, that it would be like it was this spring, that they would be teaching remotely from their homes. So a number of them last Friday got an email from the SAU office saying, no, we're going to probably be in person. The board is going to discuss this at the next meeting. And they pointed out very quickly that that would mean that they really had 11 days to figure out their own childcare, because that starts next Tuesday. If Jamie's motion were adopted the way that he shared it, it will start next Tuesday. So at this time, with their survey, Larry, to answer your question directly, they said that they would have about 26 people that would have to take leave for childcare, and another 29 that would consider it and are trying to figure it out. And they said that, and so far, in addition to the people that were putting in leave with concerns about health issues before the board went remote, we've already received 13 more requests. So those are the facts as of today. Now, if the board chooses to have people come back to the district, then that will probably, it will probably increase. Do I think it's going to be the total number that the union had received in their survey? No, I think it's probably going to be less, but a mix. And I do think that the one thing that the administrative team is recommending is, the administrative team is saying, look, we understand if the board would like teachers to work in the buildings, we'll support that and do what we're asked to do. We are also asking that the board consider a third alternative, which is to give us a little bit of leeway with teachers around childcare and just delay the full in-person implementation until September 21st, so that people have more room to figure out what to do with their kids for those who are kind of feeling panicked. And we only bring that up because the teachers asked us to. We're bringing it up because the teachers asked us to bring it to you. And we're bringing it to you because we recognize that childcare can be complicated to obtain. And we are hopeful, although there are no guarantees or promises, that if we had a little more room to work with people until mid or a little bit later in September, that we could help to alleviate some of those leave requests. But there's no guarantee, Larry, that those leave requests would be alleviated. So I'll wait to read the letter until Chair Baker asks me to read it, because I don't want to monopolize the conversation.
Anyone
Yeah, I
else?
think we have that letter read.
I'd actually like
That's
to hear.
going to depend on what happens.
Okay.
Is that okay with you, Mr. Baker?
Yeah, go ahead, Tom.
Okay.
Thank you.
So this is from the school district union to Chairman Jim Baker and the Sanborn Regional School Board. First and foremost, we would like to thank you for the thoughtful consideration you are giving to the complex issue of returning to school for the 2021 school year in light of the current global pandemic. We know that we all share the same goal, providing the highest quality educational experience for our students while also maintaining the health and safety of all. When you made the decision on July 29th for the district to go remote until October 15th, our staff immediately started planning for the first months of school. With your recent announcement of tonight's decision about staff being expected to work from the school buildings and not being allowed to work from our homes, you've instilled panic. We are professional adults and we need more time to figure out what this sudden change will mean in our lives. While a key aspect of this ultimate goal is returning to our classrooms, we want to share our concerns regarding the expectation that staff will return full force in person to the schools next week. In light of the unprecedented and uncertain times we face, we would like the community to know that we are still in discussion with the district about health and safety memorandums of agreement, but nothing has been finalized. The decision to require the delivery of remote learning from our school buildings may inevitably be putting our community at risk. It will most certainly put robust remote learning at risk, as it will impede our ability to maintain the principles that we've identified as key to a robust plan, which are outlined in the most recent proposed district plans. We are concerned that quality instruction is being misperceived to be tied to the location from which it is given, rather than to the driving principles of remote instruction. Other local school districts in the Seacoast are not making staff work remotely from the school buildings and are allowing them to have a choice during remote instruction. The expectation being placed on SAU 17 staff to work from school comes across as mistrust of professionals to do their jobs. This is a time for providing our children and our community with as much stability and certainty as possible at the end of each day. We desire that staff can work from home during remote instruction, but realize that if the decision is made tonight by the board not to accommodate that, we ask for a phase-in plan to be put in place so that all staff have until late September to either work from school or take a leave of absence. This phase-in plan will give administration time to better communicate teaching expectations and logistics of how things will happen safely. This will allow time to tease out problem areas and work out safe solutions. There's no compelling reason to broadly paint the decision that every staff member sit in classrooms for every class at this time. It simply is not realistic to expect that to be consistently possible given the current limitations stated in our governor's own requirements. Unpredictability and confusion will be the result. We implore you to take this opportunity to think about the whole system, appreciate the necessary nuances, and offer our learning community its best shot at stability and success in this difficult and stressful time. Thank you for your consideration. Now, I do want to say that I really appreciate the union's endorsement of our remote learning plan. The administration worked really hard to develop that plan, and the teachers have accepted it. I do want the board to be aware that it is my recommendation to you as the superintendent of schools that we give the teachers some flexibility at least until mid to the 21st of September. Should the board choose not to do that, I understand, and I will follow through with what I'm directed to do. But in the interest of our teaching staff, relationships, and overall morale and culture, it's my belief that giving that flexibility would be beneficial to the staff. Although I do also recognize that the board receives in return no guarantee that that is going to reduce the number of people who have to take leave on September 21st for childcare reasons. The complex problem is exponentially increased because area daycares are not taking full loads of children during the COVID crisis. And their children would normally be in school, but our staff members' children are now not attending school because many districts are only having school 2 days a week at the most. So with that's the union's letter and my thoughts and the thoughts of the administrative team. The administrative team is happy to answer your questions.
Thanks. So in my mind, the only reason to teach remote is if your company or your organization can't provide you a safe environment to work in. And that's the reason that, thousands of businesses had to close down, hundreds of thousands of businesses had to close down all across the country. But our square footage in our buildings without the students is enormous. And with just normal social distance practices, they're not going to be in a room with 20 or even 15 people. They'll be in a room by themselves or maybe with one other person, or if they volunteer to have more people in there, then they would, they'd have more people in there, but that would be up to the teacher. So in my mind, there's no reason not to come back to school to teach a class. We've got the facilities are here. We've got, the equipment, the IT people, everything you need to deliver the information. It's more efficient from an administrative standpoint. We talked about assessments and working to try to make this the best possible delivery that we can, and that can all be much more efficiently managed if people are in their classrooms. The problems that our teachers have are the same problems that our community people have with work and childcare. It's no different. It's the same. We've got we are trying to establish some options to help people out with childcare. They're not in place yet, but we hope to have something that will help out. I'm as far as when the teachers would need to be back in school, I know, or I've been told that as of February, they knew about the professional development days of the 25th, the 26th, and the 27th. That to me seems like they would have planned for that well in advance. As far as professional development days on the 1st, the 3rd, and the September, and 1st through the 3rd of September, I don't have any problem with those being done remotely. And if we want to extend the deadline for teachers being in their classrooms because they need additional time, then I don't have a problem with that either. But I think that the reasons to deliver the education from the classroom far outweigh the considerations that were in place months and months ago when businesses shut down. And even then, essential workers went to work. Fire department, police department, all kinds of people went to work all over the country. So given the space available, masks, all kinds of accommodations available, I don't see that there's a risk to people. Now, if somebody's elderly and they have a condition where they can't teach, I understand that, and there's ADA allowances for that. There's even the FLMA accommodations for people that have emergency problems. But I really think that The community is going back to work to the extent that they can. We need the teachers in the classroom. That's going to be the best and most efficient way to deliver this education. And I'm definitely for the teachers coming back. The date that they come back on, I can be flexible on that, but that's a firm date. Once that date is set, that's the date. That's my 2 cents. Anybody, Larry?
I'm going to have to disagree with both of you. I think we voted the last time because of the amount of teachers that we were going to be losing going out on whatever reason it was. They were talking over 50 teachers. That's half our staff. What are we going to do then for the other half? Sit there and have them teach the whole school? What happens if we do get one case? You sit here and you look at all these other places that open up. They've just gone sky high. I think we don't want to bury our head in the sand, ignoring that COVID is still here and is still just as potent as it ever was. We can hide it. We can sit there and say it's not a problem, but it's going to be there. And all we have to have is one case and we're shut down. Is that what you want to do?
Larry, I would respond to that and say that the reason that we voted to go remote was because teachers said they didn't want to do face-to-face instruction. But we're not asking them to do face-to-face instruction. This is a completely different situation.
What's the difference whether they do it from home or at school? It's still remote.
That's what we're talking about.
I know. I cannot see what the problem is. Why force the teachers into that situation?
Pete,
If I can, first thing I'd like to say, it's nothing to do with mistrust. It has to do with an unknown. We're trying to make hard decisions with no hard numbers. If we wait and we phase them in or wait till the 21st or whatever, we don't know that on the 21st if we're not going to be right back where we are now. And that is not knowing what's going on. But at least by then we will have hard numbers and we can adapt as we need to. I mean, I think we go as normal, see how many requests we have, and then adapt as needed. We have resources, we have administrators, we have paras, we have, we don't know the numbers. What assurances do we have that the 21st, we've got people saying they're not coming in? Well, if we decide tonight that they're coming in, then we're going to start getting requests. So in less than a week, I would think, we're going to have actual hard numbers. Now the administration can start doing their job of how do we fill in those slots. We have assistant principals, and I don't want to put this out too strongly, but we have 4.5 assistant principals with no kids in the school they're all certified teachers that can fill in. We have paraprofessionals, we have aides. There are resources we have. We're not looking at even considering those now. So my feeling is we come in now, we get the hard numbers, and then we decide. And if it works out, we have to go fully remote or partially remote, fine. I can't make a decision now, a hard decision, with no knowledge of what the future is going to bring. I need hard numbers to make a hard decision. We're making hard numbers on top of sifting sand here, and maybe possibly could be. I can't go with that. I've got to go with what I know now. And what I know now is we've got kids that got to be taught, and we've got teachers who are receiving a salary. My opinion, granted, they have the rights under the law. My opinion, we tell them they're coming in, we see what we got, and then we adapt.
Dawn.
I just have a quick question. I don't know if this is a Tom question, Patty, I'm not sure who can answer this for me, but under ADA, the staff members can work remotely. Is that correct? If someone qualifies for ADA, they can work remote.
Tom's muted. He
Oh,
needs to
Tom
be
needs to be
unmuted.
muted.
Yep.
Gordon, are you there?
There we
I
go. He's
had,
got
to,
it.
I had to come inside because I was looking too dark out there, you know. So I think it's important to note that, Dawn, there's no clear black and white answer to that. The ADA, so there's a number of, no leave says that a teacher can teach from home. The leave would say that we have to make an accommodation based on their medical condition. Could that be that they had to teach from home? Possibly, but it would be pretty severe for that to happen because we don't have any students in the building. So to be fair, I think that teachers can work in the school relatively safely. The real problem, and I don't think people really understand this, is the changes in the FMLA law.
That was my next question, is what does that mean? If they take FMLA, are they not teaching for up to 12 weeks? And are we putting a substitute teacher in there for our students?
So for example, we already have 22 people who have put in ADA request paperwork. Now, what that accommodation will look like based on their medical condition is not clear. We have 6 already that are for childcare alone. And the childcare piece is tricky because it's for 12 weeks and they get paid by the federal government. I think it's 2/3 of their salary for a portion of it, and then $200 a day up to $12,000 for 12 weeks, I think I have the flyer that I sent all of you. Jamie, you might have it memorized, but I just think it's really important to recognize that it's one thing when we had, I'm trying really hard to help you all to understand that no one is arguing on the administrative side that if you want teachers to come back to the building, that we'll make it happen, but we're asking you to give us some flexibility to help people get there. And Pete's making a really good point, is what are you getting in return? Really nothing. You're not getting any. Pete's correct. So Dawn, the answer is that we could have teachers out for up to 12 weeks. And when the union did their survey, 26 teachers said that they were definitely going to have to put in for it and have already started submitting paperwork, and another 29 said that they were considering it and trying to figure it out. So,
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
They're saying now they're not coming in. What are they basing that on? There's nobody going to be in their classroom but the teacher.
No, again, what I'm telling you is that their schools don't have school. And if we're the only district requiring teachers to work from inside the building, they don't have anyone to watch their kids, so they're scrambling for childcare. And the FMLA law gives them up to 12 weeks of leave with childcare.
Okay, so they're not saying they're not coming in because unsafe. They're saying
they're happy to come in. It's about their kid. Please, teachers are not having a problem with working from the building at all with the health and safety, maybe a handful.
Yeah, I just got confused with what you said. 29 and said they're not coming in. All right.
It is a childcare issue.
Well, so you got 29 and 6, so actually you've got 35 issues.
No, 26 and 29. 26 in the union survey said that they would definitely put in for it if the board votes to have them work from the school. Now, I don't know if that's true or not. That's just what they said. And then 29 of them said they don't know yet and they're working on it. So Pete, your point is just say we're working in the building and then see where it goes. And the union is saying, and the administrators are saying, we understand that there needs to be a drop dead date. We're asking the board to give us until September 21st to work with people.
How many of them are saying, well, if you give us till the 21st, then we will come in?
We don't know.
That to me is the problem. All right, thank you.
But the answer to that is it depends on whether or not they can secure childcare.
Well, what I'm saying, we've got an unknown, but we're trying to make hard decisions. I can't make a decision when I've got such a large unknown.
Oh, thanks. Diana Rooney just sent me a note saying, Diana Rooney is our human resources person. She sent me a note saying that it's 10 weeks at a max of 200 per day, and they cannot work while they're on FMLA. So if they take the leave, we have to cover their classes. And this is, when I spoke to the Southeastern superintendents, this is exactly why they're not making teachers work from the building, because they don't have enough subs to cover the absences. So we have to decide what we're going to do, and then the team has to move forward. Chris Snyder has a question or comment. Jim, I thought you would.
Tammy's next, though.
Chris, can
You gonna-
it's fine. I can hear Mr. Snyder's comment.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
Thank you. All I was going to say is part of, I think, part of the 29 that are on considering this is because they live in districts that still have not made their plans for the fall known officially yet. So they don't know yet if they're going to have to put in a leave because they don't know if their kids will be in school full-time, home part-time, in school part-time, or they'll be remote. And so, I mean, with districts being all over the place, that's a very real scenario for a lot of our staff.
Tammy?
Thank you. So, I mean, the first thing I want to say is I feel badly that the teachers would interpret this as any question of mistrust. That is not really where we're coming from at all. The issue here is the quality of education for the students of Sanborn Regional School District. And I guess I'm kind of perplexed as a working, I'm a working mother. I've been working some number of days from home for my job for about 20 years, since my kids were a baby and there was no way. I don't understand how the teachers, I don't understand what their plan would be to work from home. If they're asking to work remotely from home, I can't figure out, unless they have kids who are 10 years old or older, but the ones that have kids who are babies or toddlers or 5 or 6 or 7 that are going to need help with their lessons, I don't see how it's possible to advocate that you should be allowed to work from home. And I don't want to say it that way. I don't see how you can productively work from home teaching our students and watching your kids at the same time. This shouldn't even be a question of allowing the teachers to work from home so that they can watch their kids at home. I don't see how that works. I could not make that work for myself. My kids were in daycare while I worked from home. So to me, I don't even understand that aspect. I want the teachers in the classrooms because that's going to be the best system of educational delivery for our students. That's just the bottom line. I'm willing to consider, extending. I would be more comfortable kind of cutting it in the middle maybe and giving them till, say, September 14th, an extra week or so to make their arrangements. That gives them about a month of notice if they were made aware of this last week. But that's my position. I don't agree that the educational delivery system is going to be anywhere near what we want it to be with teachers who have children that they are trying to watch and educate at the same time, trying to teach our students. I can't see how that works.
Jamie?
Yeah, so Tom read a long statement from the union, and I don't want that to go unchallenged. So I got a few comments on that and then a couple of wrap-up comments. Basically that we just got the notice, the 11 days. Jim, I think you pointed out that the 25th and so has been known since September or since February. So that's been long known. When we left in May, the intent was we were coming back in September. There was no intent that it would be anything other than that until July 29th. The intent and the planning was, and our focus was, we're coming back in September. So to plan to not come back and to not make arrangements, okay, those are personal decisions. But the plan back in June was that we were going to come back in person. One of the comments that they made, because I took notes, was it puts the community at risk. I simply don't accept that as a rational statement. To your point, the buildings are large. The distancing provided would be enormous. There's no risk that I can see. So I just don't accept that as a realistic statement. The the comment about we're professionals and this demonstrates mistrust, and I think Tammy summed that up well. No, it doesn't demonstrate mistrust. It demonstrates that the board is focused on the education of the children of the district. And the best way for the children of the district to get a better education during a remote situation is for the teachers to be full-time focused on educating the children of the district that we represent as members of the board. The also statement was made that it's not realistic to expect people to come into a building. I just can't countenance that with anything that would make me think it's a rational thought. To me, it's a bit of moving the goalposts. When the decisions were made on the 29th, it was all about safety. Now that the safety issues have been mitigated, it's all about childcare, or one of the issues is childcare. Are those real issues? Of course they're real issues. But let us not forget, I think Tom showed last time on the safety issue that roughly half of our folks were 50 and up. The likelihood of 50s and up not having a child old enough to be taking care of themselves from a child care perspective is fairly limited. The likelihood of having infants in that group is even lesser in terms of the proportion. We have 1,600 families that we impacted in this district with childcare. I hear from them every single day. And we decided as a group that, I'm sorry, this is in the best interest. There's safety issues, there's quarantine issues, there's teachers showing up issues. We have to do this to you. You're going to have to figure out how to do it. And we're working on, and Tom has been working very hard on as his administration, as to how can we find some solution? Can we get the YMCA? Can we get somebody else involved to help find solutions for our people? I completely agree with Pete's statement about we need to know what our facts are. Adjustments were made in what otherwise would have been a potentially a different plan based upon survey results. We're past survey results. And let me add something that I think is quite pertinent here. If we can't get a teacher to come into an empty building when there is 0 cases in Kingston and 0 cases in Newton, and we vote that, no, we're going to stay remote, you're staying remote for the whole year. They will never come back in person. Right. So if it's not acceptable to come in with an empty building, and by God, it's never going to be acceptable for them to come in from that perspective. And if we want to turn over the keys to the kingdom and say, the board doesn't decide anything anymore, it's what the teachers may or may not do, I think that we need to say we're starting, and then we deal with whatever we have to deal with. Just like we said to the community, this is what we're doing, and then we're going to have to deal with whatever we have to deal with. I don't think we should have a different standard for the teachers of the district than we imposed upon the residents and the families of the district. So I am fully supportive of and highly advocating that we say we need to deliver a quality education, and the best way to do that for the children of this district is for the teachers of this district to be in class and teaching our kids remote until we can get back to in person.
Well,
Yep.
Just one thing, I'm going to be a bit of a hard rear end on this one, but in effect, we said to the people of this community, find daycare. We're going remote. Well, isn't that what just we asked the citizens to do that, and they're paying the salaries. We're only asking the teachers to do the same thing.
So I just wanted to remind people of one point, and the important thing to remember is that as the letter said, we desire that staff can work from home during remote instruction, but realize that if the decision is made tonight by the board not to accommodate that, we ask for a phase-in plan to be put in place so that all staff have until late September to either work from school or to take a leave of absence. again, the administrative team is asking the board to consider a phase-in approach. I understand if folks feel like September 21st is too long, you don't have to do what we're recommending. We're asking you to just consider that. And I only bring that up, Mr. Fitzpatrick, because Jamie, because your motion is still standing.
I know, I was gonna remind you of that.
Yeah.
Can I address that? Can I
I was
address
being
that,
all
Jamie?
formal for a
Did
minute
your
there.
motion, Jamie, did your motion have a specific date in it?
At start of school,
Start of school, okay.
the motion, to reread it to you, says, I move that the school board direct the remote learning be done by teachers from the classroom to ensure the best possibility of improved delivery of educational services to our children during the time that we are remote. So there's not
Okay.
cut out for a later date.
Okay, Dawn.
Chip.
Yeah.
Dawn's first, Pete.
That's all right, that's all right.
Sorry. So I am completely torn on this because I see and understand them asking for more time because we did give our parents 6 weeks to come up with accommodations for their children. But at the same time, I also have concern without, like we keep saying, without hard numbers of knowing what is going to happen. And I know we can't get some of those hard numbers right now, but I'm concerned about our student learning if we are pushing out to the 21st. I think maybe a little bit sooner than that would be cool of us. We have to know if our kids start with a teacher day one, in 2 weeks, are they going to then have a different teacher? That's a concern that I have as a parent. And I'm sure that's a concern that a lot of people that are listening right now are also having, going, well, if they decide to take FMLA, then for up to 10 weeks, they may have a sub. And what does that do for our remote learning plan? So I understand they would like some more time because it wasn't clearly stated that we wanted them back in the building. It wasn't really specified either direction. And, like Jamie said, we were up until that point on the 29th, it was looking like potentially going back. But we then kind of changed our mind. So if people maybe undid some things that they had done, I can understand that as well. But it's really hard to make this decision given so many different factors. I mean, with the potential for 26 and maybe 29 more possibly taking FMLA. I mean, I'm concerned about numbers. I'm concerned about staffing. But I also do feel at the same time that having teachers in person, especially for PLC and things like that, it's important. So I guess I would be okay with giving them some more time, but I don't know that giving them until the 21st is a date that I'm comfortable with.
Pete, go ahead.
Yeah. We're saying give them more time, but in reality, we're the ones that need more time. We need to know because we need time to make decisions. So I see your point, give them a little more time, but when I say what's that get us, what's that get them? It gets nobody anything. But we're the ones that need more time because we need to get those numbers in, and God forbid they wait until the day before school and then put in for it. I don't think that'll go down too well, but the thing is, we're the ones that need the time. No, now we're not asking them to do anything we didn't ask the parents to do, and I know I already said that. And this is a hard thing, but our job is to educate the kids the best we can, and I agree with Tammy on that. I agree with Jim with his first statements. Look, we can't give more time because we need the time to make our decisions and to adapt. I use the word adapt, and to adapt our personnel and call in on our personnel to maybe make some changes. I use the principal. Maybe we go to the vice principal and say, hey, in these times with no kids in the school, you're certified in history and our history teacher is taking FMLA. We need you to, into the breach one more time. So we need time to make those decisions. And if we give that time to someone else, we cannot get it back.
Right.
That's all.
So let me make a suggestion, because it seems like a majority of the board is leaning toward wanting the teachers to teach from the schools. So what if we broke this up into two deliberations? One is a vote on whether the teachers should teach remotely or teach from the school, and the other is what date should they actually start in the school, if that's the vote.
Jamie would have to amend his motion then.
Yep, Larry's got his hand up, so let's hear what he had to say.
Well, let me start off with this. My concerns at the original start of this was that we were told that there was going to be a possibility of half the teachers not being here. What I was concerned about more than anything else is what the worst thing in the world is, to start a classroom with a teacher in it, and all of a sudden that teacher's gone. And then all of a sudden you got half the teachers in the building are gone. I don't care where the teachers teach, as long as they're teaching and the kids are learning. I'm still concerned, how many teachers are we going to lose? That forces us to either hire more teachers costing more money, or are we just, where are we headed? And I agree with Pete. We need solid, strong numbers so we can make a decision.
So we have to jump
I
in.
have no concern about where they teach. I agree that also there's enough room in the building where they should be able to have sufficient separation where there is no problem. I just am not, I'm concerned about, are we going to have sufficient teachers to do the job? And that's really my concern. And I agree with you, Jim. I think maybe we should split this into two. And if Jamie is agreeable, I'll make the amendment to the motion that we split his motion into two parts. One part being going back to school and teaching from this building, and the other one is discussing when.
Jamie.
Yeah, so just from a point of order perspective, I'm not prepared to adjust my amendment, but that doesn't stop anybody from making any amendment after my amendment is voted on one way or the other. So if that is something the board wants to entertain and add an amendment after the fact, then the board is free to do that. There's nothing about voting for one item that prevents you from voting for another. So
I think the parliamentary procedure
Say
is
one
to
last
make the
thing, Jim.
amendment.
Yeah, go ahead, Pete.
Amendment and then post.
Maybe we're looking at this differently.
Wait, Pete, go ahead.
Okay, maybe I'm looking at this one, but we can always go back to remote. If we find that we don't have sufficient teachers and we can't make adaptations to be able to do this in the classroom, it's a very simple, I'm sorry, maybe I'm Pollyanna here, but it's a very simple thing to say, hey, teachers, you people who are here, starting Monday or Tuesday or whatever day the superintendent and the administrative staff want to choose, we're going back to full remote. You don't have to come in anymore. And it's done. So I'm with Jamie. We start as soon as possible when school was scheduled to start. And if push comes to shove and we find out that we can't make any adaptations, or the negatives outweigh the positives, or the cost benefit is terrible, whatever, we just swing back to remote.
I would just add that the teachers have reached out with a letter asking for some consideration as far as the timeline goes. And it's reasonable in my mind to think that if they have another 2 weeks, we're going to get more people showing up to the building than if we don't give them the 2 weeks. And so personally, I think that's a common, an accommodation that will serve the district. So my inclination is to vote on Jamie's motion. I think we have enough people to pass it, but then make an amendment about the date that they have to show up. Jamie?
I'd move the amendment, please,
Okay.
if I can get a second.
So, okay.
I'll second it.
So Jamie, your vote?
Aye.
Larry? Larry?
Yeah, I'm thinking. Aye.
Okay. Okay. Charlie?
Aye.
Tammy?
Yes.
Dawn?
Yes.
Pete?
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm confusing here, but what is the amendment now?
To start on the 8th. To start.
Oh, okay, I thought that was his original motion. I'm sorry.
There
It
is
is.
no
This is the original motion.
Really isn't any.
Okay, so you're saying we're voting on the 8th?
Correct.
Aye.
Okay, and I vote aye as well. Now,
Get Larry and Charlie?
yeah, they voted. It's unanimous.
Okay.
So now I want to make a motion to discuss. Well, I want to put out there to the board to discuss whether we want to make an amendment to the date of the 8th.
I think you have point of order. I think you have to make before we.
No, you can discuss it before you make an amendment. You can discuss it and then make an motion.
I don't think
No.
so.
You don't have to
make
have
the motion.
I believe you have to have a motion and a second to discuss it.
No, if you look at what's the
Robert's
Parliamentary
rules.
procedure
Robert's
says
Rule of
motion is
Orders.
required.
Yeah, you can discuss and then make a motion. It can go either way.
I didn't
So
think
Why
so,
don't just
but
make a
okay.
motion and just do it?
all right, I'll make a motion that these teachers are remote until the 14th, and then they work from the classrooms. The
I'll
14th
second
of
that.
September.
I mean,
Point of information.
Yep,
Are you saying that they come back to work on the 14th or that they're remote until the 14th? Which day?
they're
What day?
remote until the 14th because they have personal development days. They have the 25th, 26th, 27th, and they have September 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. School starts on the 8th. So my motion is that they would do those remotely. And then on the 14th, they would start teaching from their school, their classrooms.
Okay, thank you. Get a second on that? Somebody
I
seconded.
think Larry already.
Larry seconded.
Any discussion? Pete?
Yeah, I'm going to speak against that because to tell you the truth, I don't want to start remote from home back into school and then possibly remote from home again.
It's going to be remote no matter what. It's going to be
Yes, but
remote.
what I'm saying is, you're going from remote from home, remote in school, possibly remote from home. I mean, look at, we bite the bullet. We make our decision. We already made our decision, actually. I just look. We slice the bread. It's time to eat the sandwich.
So I have
Okay.
Oh.
Jamie?
I'm just saying, I'll go back to what Pete said before. I thought he succinctly said it. We need time. So it's one thing to say in a survey. It's one thing to file a piece of paper. ultimately we need to know who's going to show up and who isn't. And they'll have to make adjustments. Whatever those adjustments are, we'll be working with the administration to make the adjustments. The sooner we know that answer, the better situation we will be in. And my fear is the 14th turns to the 21st, and then I already know what the next argument is. Well, we're supposed to be making a discussion in the district on the 15th. Why don't we just wait till that? And I can just see it continuing to snowball. And I would prefer to say we need to know. And I think Pete summed it up well, that we are the ones that need the time.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead, Tom.
I got a little confused there. Was the motion that just passed, could someone tell me exactly what the motion that just passed was again?
Jamie?
The original motion, that was Jamie's to start on the 8th.
Here it is. I move that the school board direct that the remote learning to be done by teachers from the classrooms to ensure the best possibility for an improved delivery of educational services to our children during the time that we are remote. So that's, they're in the classroom for the start of remote.
But
start of school is the 8th.
I think the principals are a little bit confused as to the start of school is the 8th, but there are 6 professional development days before that.
Yep.
Is your motion saying that they could work from their homes during the professional development days?
My motion did not address that.
Okay, because the 8th isn't really the start date. The start date is really next Tuesday for the professional.
Not for remote learning for the kids. It's not.
Okay, so you're saying we can handle the professional development days how we see fit.
Yeah, my motion did not address that.
All right, thank you. Thank you. But I am asking the board for clarity that the administration could allow people to work from home during the professional development days if needed based on the motion that just passed. That's how, as the superintendent, that's how I interpreted that motion.
No business.
Okay.
That is a fair assessment. My motion,
Thank
I
you.
did not intend, nor did the wording of the motion address anything other than the start of the remote learning, which would be the 8th of September is when the children remote learning.
Thank you. I just wanted it to be explicit. Thank you.
Personally, I think they should be there for the 25th since they've known since February, but it's got nothing to do with my motion.
Thank you, Jamie.
So all I'm saying is that given the situation where both the administration and the teachers have asked us to give them more time, and I think that consideration just rationally has a much greater potential for more people being able to make accommodations for their kids and be able to teach. I'm sure that most of them want to teach. If we give them some extra time to arrange for their childcare. I think Dawn's point that, we made a decision on the 29th and gave parents 6 weeks to arrange for their childcare is important. If we give the teachers a couple more weeks, it's reasonable to think that more teachers are going to be able to work from their classrooms than take a family medical leave. It's just common sense. Now, that may not work out that way because maybe they can't find accommodations for their kids. Maybe the daycares are all filled up. Maybe there's no other option. But that's an accommodation that I think has the best potential for us getting the most people into the building to teach. So, Tammy.
Yeah. So I agree with you, and I agree with Dawn. I mean, my position is actually, like I said, I want the teachers in the classrooms, but I do have some amount of understanding of the fact that I guess we weren't explicit when we voted at the end of July to open with remote learning. We didn't explicitly let the staff know that we were going to be expecting them to be in the classrooms at that time. So as much as I want them in the classroom, I am willing to make this accommodation. and allow them to have till the 14th. I think I said that before, but I would support this. I mean, I understand all the points that Pete and Jamie have made, but that's where I'm coming from.
Okay, Pete, you're next, and then Larry.
Yeah, and I'll try to make this my last one. A teacher can put in for FMLA because of childcare. And if 2 days later they put in for it, they get childcare, they can come back to work. They can come into the school. You know,
That's right.
it's not like, well, you put in for FMLA, you've got to stay out 12 weeks. So by us giving them, you know, up to the 14th, it doesn't matter. Teacher puts in for it, and the next day they get daycare. They just go to the superintendent and say, I got daycare, I'm coming in. You know, so I don't see the reason to give them more time because they've got more time built into the system already. So this way we get the week we need. There's a week there that gives us more time to work on. And if somebody puts in for FMLA and we just give that person a call and say, this is for daycare? Yes, it is. If you get daycare earlier, will you be coming in then? Yes, I will. Okay. So I don't see what giving an extra week gets us because they got it anyway.
If I were a board member, I would move the motion, but I can't.
Larry.
Let me say something. There's one thing that we're looking at. If you look on the calendar, they're getting essentially 4 additional days only. I have to go back with Jamie. Since we've already voted to sit there and go back to move into the classroom, 4 days it's ridiculous to sit there and have them start one way, then have to shift over and go the other way. I think we should just stay with the original ones, even if I second it. Stay with the original one and let it go. It will force people to move faster.
It's 6 days, Larry.
Well, actually, the 7th is Labor Day. You got that day off. Go to the 8th, Friday, that's the 11th. That's only 4 days. And you start back up the following Monday. That's 4 days.
Okay. Does anybody else have anything to say?
I have nothing else.
Okay.
Move the motion.
So let's move the motion.
Second.
All right. So starting with Jamie.
No.
Okay. Larry.
No.
Dawn.
No.
Tammy.
Yes.
Pete.
No.
Charlie.
I'm a no because I believe it's kicking the can down the road.
Okay. And I'll vote. I'm a yes for that. So 5-2.
Go to the 8th
All
today.
right.
What's next on the agenda?
Next on the agenda is athletics. This probably won't be easier. Oh, Jamie, go ahead.
2 to 3 minute bio break, maybe?
Oh, sure. All right. Okay, 3 minutes.
Jim, could I let we have athletics, so I was thinking I was thinking that we could just keep the high school, middle school, and let the other folks go. I don't think Jody, did we cover everything that you need to do?
That would seem fair.
Ryan McCluskey runs the Ivory Tower, so we always try to let him have some special consideration.
Okay.
I think Chris and Ryan, you guys are all set. Jody, are you all set? Is there anything else that you want to talk about? Patty, are you okay? All right, so we'll let Patty go. Jody, are you good? You need to stay? Oh, Jody's going to stay for the policies. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
Patty, you're all set.
You want to do the policies?
Sorry, I was trying to get muted, but I still have the Title IX policies.
Could we do the Title IX policy?
Do we have a lot of issues on the policies, or is that something that's going to sail through?
Just look at Jamie. He could, if he's got 7.
I have questions, but really only one.
Okay.
Just one? All right, let's
make a motion to take policy next and save. Wait, let the lady go to bed.
I don't think we need a motion. We can just do it.
Okay.
Jody, you're up. Sorry, Bob.
I appreciate that. So I had sent you all 5 new policies. Well, 3 revisions to a policy and 2 new policies for Title IX, sexual harassment. So there were just some substantial changes to the laws that went into effect on August 14th. And I tried to summarize some of the bigger changes for you in that email that I sent. We had one of our attorneys go through and look at our current policies, make recommendations based off of the new rules, and then also recommended we adopt 2 new additional policies. I am still learning, as is legal counsel is still learning all of the new rules that are part of this. There's a lot. There are instances where we're not sure how we're going to be able to even follow some of the new rules, but we don't have any guidance from that yet. We have to just do what's kind of in place. So I'm here to propose that we revise 3 policies and adopt 2 new ones, so that we are in compliance with the new rules. And then obviously, as we have situations that come forward, if I'm unsure of how to answer that, I would seek some advice from legal counsel, which I know most districts are doing right now anyway, because legal counsel, like I said, has said that they don't even have all the answers right now. The document is over 2,000 pages. I actually went to go read it and print it, and then realized that there's no way I'm going to get through over 2,000 pages of legal jargon. As I imagine, you probably don't want to read that as well. But some of the big changes that I highlighted for you in the email is the threshold for qualifying under sexual harassment and discrimination is different. So in the past, sometimes like a one-time occurrence might fall under Title IX. It's going to be very hard for a one-time occurrence to fall under Title IX if it's a hostile environment. Obviously, there's differences for abuse situations and violence. There's also some changes. There's a lot of timelines and responsibilities. So essentially, any reports most likely would get filed to building level administrators. Those administrators or teachers need to then file a report with me. I then contact the complainant and the respondent, ask them more questions, explain the process to them, explain the process if we go to a formal complaint, and kind of the steps in between to protect those students as well. I also have to review if it even falls under the new definition of sexual harassment. And if they don't, they then get dismissed. There's also new laws governing the scope of where they happen. So if they happen in the school or during the context of the school day on school property, then they potentially could fall under Title IX. However, there's been some changes. So now, like study abroad programs, if it happens internationally, it automatically does not fall under Title IX. So there's some changes there. Once I go through that process with the individuals, then it goes back to the building level, most likely. This is how we're thinking of doing it, because it's really the only way that makes sense. And we've already undergone some training with legal counsel and the administrators. Essentially, you have an investigator and a decision maker. They cannot be the same person, and they also cannot be the Title IX coordinator. In the past, I did some investigations. I can no longer do that. I'm here to help the parties involved, the students involved, the employees involved, and then consult with decision makers and investigators, but I can't do anything moving forward from that point. Then there's obviously an appeal process. Again, there's a lot of substantial changes when it comes to, and I didn't put this in there, if they go through the formal process of moving forward and they do a formal complaint, everything has to be known. So all allegations, the alleged victim, who's known as the complainant and the respondent, all that information is shared. That's where some of the kind of unknowns come right now, which is where I would be seeking legal counsel if we go in this direction, because there are some potential violations of FERPA by sharing information, because you have to share everything right now in the current law. So I'm not sure that once we even provide all this information to alleged victims, how many alleged victims are going to want to move forward with the formal complaint, because their information is all going to be out there. We would ensure that they're protected, there's supportive measures in place so that they feel comfortable, but I think that that's going to also substantially limit the amount of formal complaints we have moving forward. There were some timelines. So there's like 10-day timelines to review information. The whole process takes about 40 days. I did elect in the policy, it was recommended calendar or business days. I took the liberty to go with business days because I get nervous if something happens the Friday before a holiday break, that you then, if you go with calendar days, you would have staff trying to figure out and contacting families to get their information within those 10 days. So I did make the decision to go with business days, but if you want, we can change all of those to calendar days. Those are kind of the highlights. If you have questions, I'll do my best to answer. Like I said, there's still a lot of this that's new to me as well. So hopefully I can answer any questions you might have.
So Jody, are you looking for a first read or are you looking for an approval? Because it sounds like something is, a lot hasn't been nailed down yet. Tom?
Yeah, we need a first and second read and approval on this because the law went into effect August 14th. If things change, Jody will bring an amendment to the board.
Okay.
Yeah, so just to clarify on that, we were waiting for the New Hampshire School Board Association to roll out some draft policies. They have yet to do that, which is why I decided to work with legal counsel to get these up and going, because I think it's imperative that we have these new rules in our policies. There is one thing that our legal counsel has not reviewed yet is there's a form that a reporter would use to report the incident to myself, whether it be the alleged victim themselves or a third party. That was already in our previous policies. They haven't had a chance to look it over to make sure that they're still comfortable with it for the new laws, but it's a pretty vague blanket template. Once they review that, there's a potential I could be asking for an amendment for that form, but I doubt it because again, it's a pretty vague template.
Okay. So, questions? Tammy?
I'd like to move these policies for first and second read. These 5 policies. Do you want me to list them out?
Sure.
Policy ACAA, ACAA-R, ACAB, ACAB-R, and AC.
Okay, I'll second that. Discussion. Jamie?
Just 2 quick questions, I hope. One is I read through them and they look awfully redundant. I mean, they all seem to be saying the same thing with a different title on the top. The reason that you need so many of them presumably there is because you just brought us 5, but could you help explain to me why we need all the redundancies?
Lawyers put it together.
I wish I could give you a solid answer on that, Jamie. That's probably not as much my background to say why we need all of them. But yes, there is some redundancies. There are 4 in particular. There's 2 that look the same. The difference is that one is for student to student and then one involves employees. So I don't have the names in front of me. I can pull them up. Hold on, I just need to minimize some things on my screen.
I think Pete answered the question, lawyers.
Yeah, I mean, lawyers, and essentially there's 1 policy for everybody, and then there's 2 policies for students and 2 policies for employees. And the one for students and employees, they mirror each other almost exactly, except that we have to break out students from employees.
The other question is, in one of them, we very, very clearly are saying the word "and" is the word and not "or." And in the other one, we use the word "or." So I thought I would have thought we would have wanted to be consistent, but apparently we want one to say "or" and one to say "and" in terms of categories.
I think we have to ask about that because I think it's supposed to be "and," Jamie.
I think, but I don't know.
So I'm
okay with proceeding, but we really should get that answer because we want consistency in policy.
What 2 policies are there? Those?
I'll have to go back and look. Let me see.
Don't worry about that. What we can do is the board can approve it pending Jody getting counsel on that issue.
Right.
Because I do think it might just have been a typographical error because I'm 99.9% sure that it's "and," but I would like Jody to double check. And Jamie, you don't have to find it right now. We can.
Okay.
Jamie, if you want to let me know, or I can look into it and figure it out myself as well.
I know one of them, ACAA-R, says or rather than and. Whatever one is a complementary one to that says and.
That's odd. That's odd.
Yeah, it was probably just an oversight.
Because the old law read or.
Correct.
So we need to fix it. So thanks. That's a great catch. I didn't catch that.
It's probably an oversight, Jamie, because there was actually one of the ones they gave me, they had the address in there for so they had the addresses in there for who to contact in Concord should you have questions, and then one of them did not have the addresses. So the one that didn't is probably the one that has the incorrect and or, but I'll check with legal counsel. They probably just didn't update that second one.
All right, thank you.
Anybody else have anything, Tammy?
Do I need to amend the motion then to include the,
Can't we just approve it and then bring it back if there's a change?
I would just approve it. I would just amend and approve it based on Jody finding out the answer to that question.
Okay.
That way we don't
I'm
have to
gonna
do
do
that.
that. I do that.
I'll second that change.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. So if nobody else has anything, I'll move to vote. Larry,
Yes.
Charlie,
Yes.
Jamie,
Aye.
Pete,
Yes.
Tammy,
Yes.
and Dawn,
Yes.
and yes for me.
Thank you,
Cool.
Jody.
Thank
For all
you.
that work.
Thank you, Jody.
Thank you all for adopting those. I know this is outside of the normal procedure. And I also would like to thank you just for accepting the special education proposal as well tonight.
Let us know how that 2,000-page book ends.
Will do, Jamie.
Boring.
Okay, so now let's go to Bob with athletics.
Hey, guys, could we
Oh.
let our student rep sign off if he wants to, because it is.
Sure, I was going to
This is
suggest
probably
that
gonna
as
go
well.
wrong. It's up to Mr. We don't want you to, you don't have to, but we want to be, it's late.
Jake, what do you want? You know, it's up to you. What do you want to do? Hang in or kick or sign off, whatever you want to do.
I actually care about athletics. Can I stay?
I was wondering- I was thinking
About sports, he ain't going anywhere.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can't
All
remember
right.
what sport he does. I should find that out first.
Bob, you're up.
Yes, I do have a PowerPoint that I would love to pull up if I could, if that's okay with you guys.
Yep.
It's not extensive. It's just actually helps to guide my brain a little bit to make sure I say things the right way. Hopefully that worked right. It's not a perfect screen, but I didn't want to. PowerPoint gets weird on my computer sometimes. So we do have some options for athletics. The board, as some of you don't know that, but the board has seen a much longer report that I wrote on athletics. And I think it's much more extensive, and I'm going to try to break it down and keep it relatively simple for everybody who hasn't had that long report that I wrote. Right now, we're dealing with the case numbers that are there. We're all familiar with those case numbers. So this is sort of the context of what we're looking for. I looked quickly. I'm no medical doctor as to whether children are at higher risk or not. And we've been over that as well. But that was sort of something that went into my considerations as far as making my recommendation. That's really what this document is. The NHIAA, which is the governing body for high school sports in New Hampshire, has taken a largely hands-off role in this. They have decided to go with, adopt the recommendation of the governor's economic reopening task force, which is very amenable to practice, that should say games, competition, and really everything under the sun. The governor was actually on WEEI radio in Boston today talking about how he almost wants the state to become a mecca for youth sports in this era. And we've seen a couple results of that. In Exeter had a tournament, a hockey tournament a couple of weeks ago, and they had a COVID positive participant in that tournament. And it was just announced this afternoon that the Seacoast United baseball program, they had a youth tournament over the weekend, and there was a COVID positive, I believe, player in that tournament. And all implication in the article I looked at, and that was relatively quickly, was that player was from out of state, just to be fair. So I think the hockey player was from Connecticut, and it looks like the baseball player may have been from Massachusetts. So There are a lot of youth sports that are going on right now, but they have not been without incident and issues in youth sports. The New Hampshire Department of Health and Human Services also has been providing guidance to the superintendents of schools. Those are public documents that are on the website. The links are in my report. In the most recent one we had, Dr. Chan, who's the epidemiologist for the DHHS, does not recommend contact in extracurricular activities, is the way he put it. And he was asked specifically on that conference call about school athletics. And while he didn't go right out and say he didn't want us to do that, or he didn't recommend us doing that, actually that's what he did. He recommended that we not have contact sports in the during that conference call. And the link and the transcript of what he said is there in the document that I shared with the board. There are some contradictions here that worry me quite a bit. The governor's economic task force versus the New Hampshire DHHS, which I just spoke about. And the second contradiction that worries me quite a bit is if we are remote and we're not allowing students to come into the school building, and then 45 minutes after the end of their school day, we would have students outside practicing in any level of sports. And there are several levels of the risk as associated with those sports based on the NHIAA and the New Hampshire Athletic Directors Association guidelines. So that's one that I've had a really hard time reconciling. And I know from hearing, I've probably been on 15 Zoom calls in the last 3 or 4 weeks about athletics, and it's really been a struggle for other people, in particular in schools that are going remote, but certainly also for schools that are in a hybrid model, where you're saying let's not have contact in the academic realm, but after school, which is a big part of the school experience for many kids, we're going to allow physical contact. The simple problem statement, and you can tell I'm working on my doctoral degree right now, so I write problem statements. How can we maintain the significant emotional and physical benefits of youth athletics and maintain a safe environment for our student athletes? And there's no question that there are huge benefits to athletics in school and all extracurriculars. I mean, I'm not going to, we have a separate issue that will come up in regards to our extracurriculars. Can we allow, the student council to meet in person out on the lawn, 6 feet apart and things like that? We're not addressing that this evening, but that's coming. So I developed basically 6 options, which the board has seen. There are, without any question, 100 options. There are 88 high schools that play NHIAA sports in New Hampshire. And from sitting on a call with about half of the ADs today, and they were running down what their plans are, there are about 88 plans out there for how we're going to handle it. There have been schools that are all in. Their simple answer is, what are you doing? They're like, we're all in. We're playing everything, no restrictions. Practice is going to start on the 8th because the NHIAA delayed by 2 weeks. And there are other schools that are, I just found an article this afternoon that the medical committee of the Dover school district is recommending no sports at all, not even the lowest impact, lowest risk sports like golf. Their recommendations, they don't do anything. So the honest answer is it's all over the place. There is no one answer, and there's really no theme here. So the options that sort of ran through my head, and some things, and some of these are borrowed and adapted from other people. First would be a full go. We'd have all sports, all the kids would be in, everybody plays. That, of course, creates a situation where we have the maximum amount of contact or risk amongst our athletes. Option 2 would be we'd only participate in low and moderate risk sports. And that would, in our situation, that would not include, it's a simpler list, football and full cheerleading. With cheer would be your spirit, is what NHIAA calls it. That would be the dance competitions, they do stunting, they do what used to be called pyramids. There's another term I can't remember anymore for what it is. That would be gone. We could still do sideline cheer, but we would not be playing football. Option 3 would be only the low impact sports. We would cancel the other ones. That would be, for us, the 2 sports that we have in the low category are cross country and golf. That would, by the way, also pick up, in my viewpoint, middle school cross country as well. So we have an option for that. And in option 2, in the low and moderate, we would be playing, that would include middle school field hockey and middle school soccer and cross country. Option 4 would be a low impact. So golf and cross country would run, but we would play in-house competition in football, soccer, and field hockey, where the kids would be playing small-sided games. There's a lot of you have gone to little kid soccer games where they play 6-on-6. It'd be the similar situation for field hockey. And football has something they call 7v7 football, where you have a center and a quarterback and, usually 3 to 4 wide receivers. The center doesn't end up blocking anybody. That's a relatively low contact or a flag football situation. The NFL actually has a flag football rule set that we could adapt. And a friend of mine is actually a national NFL flag official who works the national finals every year. And she's agreed already to help us out if we wanted to go that route to put that in place. Option 5 would be intramurals for everybody. We wouldn't have any competition outside of the district. And we would just have an intramural situation. One of the big benefits there is we're not mixing with any outside schools ever. And we also eliminate a huge amount of travel. One of the issues we have with all sports, and schools are running into this across the state, is how far can we go? Hanover, for instance, is limiting their athletes. They can only travel 75 minutes on the bus. And part of the plan, and I started working on it today, I would recommend that we go about 25 miles or 40 minutes or so from home would be about the farthest that I would go. And that gives us a pretty large selection of schools, in particular within the divisions that we need to play. And there's a lot of talk about rescheduling if we need to go that way. Option 6 would be the low sports or low risk sports, and what I would call is the Sanborn decathlon, where we would put together a series of events for our kids to compete. We would allow our athletes and the other sports that aren't competing to come to the campus socially distanced as best as we can do. We'd probably grid out the entire field out behind the high school in, say, a 5-yard grids, and allow the students to do fitness activities with the coaching staff with their own individual sport, and culminate around the late part of October with a competitive event where, say, they might have a 100-yard golf shot closest to the pin for points. We might have, go kick a field goal or, dribble a field hockey ball. And this would be for all athletes. So you'd have football players dribbling, field hockey balls, and cheerleaders kicking field goals, and the kids would also be doing a cheer. So we'd want to involve all the sports and try to come up with a point system so we could have competition within each team. So the entire football team would be competing against each other. You could have grade level competitions. The boys and the girls compete against each other. And if we get it right, we can crown a single champion for the whole school, or maybe one male and one female champion, something like that. So those are the options that I sort of came up with over the course of a couple of weeks of talking to other people. There are, as I said earlier, a million. There's an unlimited amount. My recommendation, I think I've actually got this number flipped now that I look at it because I've been looking at it a long time, is that we allow the cross country and golf athletes to compete locally, once again, within that 25-mile or 40-minute bus ride travel. We would probably have to use extra buses. My recommendation would be to zigzag the kids on the bus. You get about 13 or 14 on a bus. And instead of sending 2 buses to a cross-country meet, we might be sending 4 or 5. But that gives, I'm worried a lot about putting the kids on the bus and having them travel. This will be a regional schedule. We'd keep them as close to home as we can and let them compete. This would allow competition for all athletes, although not the traditional competition that, of course, they're looking for. They wouldn't be playing against other schools, so we eliminate that mixing bowl, but they do have a chance to compete. Fitness opportunities for all of our athletes. I am absolutely certain we would have student athletes who would normally play soccer who would make a decision that they would want to run cross country. We might get a student who tried out for the golf team who traditionally played football. They would have that opportunity to do that. I don't know how many we can accommodate in golf because it's not our golf course. But we could accommodate, in my view, as many as we can handle in cross country. If I get 200 kids doing cross country, I'm good with that. We will do everything we can to find coaches and safely allow those kids to compete. And it also allows for the fitness opportunities, if I didn't mention it already, and the camaraderie of that team aspect. It's not ideal. It's not good. But it is, it's a compromised position to try to maintain the safety of the athletes as best as we possibly can. So that is my recommendation, that we go in that direction. So I will turn it off back to you.
Thanks, Bob. It's up. This is over to the board. I'm letting Bob take the lead on this because he's the expert.
All right. So Go ahead, Tammy.
So I did have a question. The option that you're recommending would that allow for students to when would they be to continue practicing in their sports, and when would that begin, and what would a sort of typical schedule would it look like?
Yeah, I haven't. I think it's fleshed out in there, but it's better to explain because I know there's other people who are watching and listening. So, the NHIA has delayed the first day of practice in all sports to September 8th. They do, however, allow for fitness activities to occur outside of the season. They shouldn't really be full-on kind of practices for the kids. They should just be, it can be dribbling a field hockey ball with a stick or kicking soccer balls around, but they shouldn't really be scrimmaging or playing big games or doing full-on drills. That's not allowed by the NHIA until September 8th. We would be resuming those fitness activities probably as soon as next Tuesday for the kids in the sports, whatever we would approve. Now, golf isn't a unique one because they can start practice on the 8th and they have a match scheduled for the 10th. And my intention would be, and I honestly don't even know where it is, to try to let them play that match because they don't need the delay, and their season is actually shorter. Their state final match is something around October 8th or 10th, something like that. So they have a pretty narrow window to get their matches in. So that would be my intention. We would pick up with the fitness activities on probably not the first day of school on the 8th. We'd probably be looking to start that on Thursday and Friday of that week, the last 2 days of that week. And then my thinking is we go Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday every week. We just do the 3-day weeks for everybody. And if we do have a rain situation Monday or Tuesday, we just push back to Wednesday. But we still have meetings and things to go on with our staff after school, which makes the scheduling of the Wednesday practices are always a bit. It's a little harder to schedule the Wednesday stuff. So I would go Monday, Tuesday, Thursday with the fitness activities, and then we'll try to wrap everything up by around the 21st or so of October, somewhere in that neighborhood.
I don't know which one had your hand up first, but go ahead, Pete.
Yeah, actually, I got a couple questions, Bob. Who would we play against? I mean, are the other schools, do they have football? Do they have the other? I mean, I used to hate practice, but I love the games. And if I don't have anything to play against, why am I even going to practice?
Yeah, it's a huge issue that people are concerned about statewide. So if we were to play football, we could end up in a situation where the only people I could play would be Pinkerton, Londonderry, and Salem, and that would not be an ideal situation. So there are ADs that have already said we don't want to play those games because we don't want to get our kids maybe not killed, but we don't want to have our trainer Jen on the field all day. So depending on the level of competition that we have, we would be looking to play, and everybody's in the same boat. We would be playing everybody we could within a local area. It basically means we have to reschedule everything, and we're not alone. Everybody statewide has to do the same thing because almost every school board or superintendent is saying, you're not driving. We have a soccer game scheduled in Conway on October 3rd. There's no way in the world we're going to Conway. It's an hour and 50 minutes on a bus. It just doesn't, that's crazy.
But do we have teams now that have already agreed to play?
No,
we have school districts that we play, that we normally play against, and they're saying yes, we're going to play.
Right now, if you said a firm plan to go in our region within those 25 miles, there's probably one school I can think of that absolutely knows what they're doing, and that's Pinkerton Academy. Virtually everybody else within that 25-mile radius of us is somewhat up in the air right now.
Okay, so that's
we'd be about the second school in the Seacoast region to know that. Now, here's one thing that somebody out there is going to wonder, so I'll make a public statement on it here. We may end up playing Epping in a game who's much smaller than we are, and then the next week we might be playing Salem, who's much larger than we are. Both of those games will count. Neither one would be in our division, but they would both count. All games in New Hampshire count. What the NHIA has said is that all teams in except one sport, everybody is allowed to basically opt into the tournament. So late in the season, let's say we were to have field hockey play. I could go to Vicky, our coach, and say, hey, what do you think? Do you think we should play in the tournament? Now, knowing Vicky, she'd say, heck yeah, we're playing, and we would opt in. A coach might also say, hey, we're 0-12, we're beat up. we're not really good, we shouldn't play. So we'd have the option to join the tournament or not. The one sport that may be different than is golf, and a bunch of ADs are working on trying to fix that, where our record may matter. And that could be a problem for us if the only teams we can play are Exeter and Timberlane and Pinkerton, and they're very good, and we get waxed every week. And our team's okay in our division, but we still don't make it. But we're working on that. That's kind of an overly complicated answer to what you're saying. So it doesn't matter record-wise whether we win every game or lose every game as to whether or not we can make it into the tournament. And if they do an open tournament, they basically throw all the teams in a hat and just pull the names out, and you play whoever you get. Your record doesn't matter. There's no seeding in an open tournament.
Okay, my next question is, do you think, how would the kids get to practice? I mean, right now they're already at school. So, all of a sudden, they're learning remotely, and 2:30, 3 o'clock, somehow they've got to get to the high school or the middle school, especially the middle school, because high school kids, they might have enough cars to, buddy up. But I mean,
right, and
that leads into my next question, and that is, are we going to have enough athletes or players to even field teams?
Well, based on the summer workouts that we were running before the remote decision was made, and I put them on pause, our numbers were okay in the summer program. They were about actually a little higher than I think I've heard we've had in the past. So I'm not terribly worried about the numbers. As far as transportation is concerned, I'd like to say that I pick up responsibility for the kids. At least that's the way I view it, and I could be wrong here. As soon as they arrive on campus and how they get here, I don't know that I can get into that. The interesting thing is that both of our teams right now that I'm talking about having sports would be golf. They go out of Apple Hill, which is in, I think, East Kingston or Kingston. I'm not sure which. Is it East? And the cross country team tends to work out on the plains because their meets are up in the state park. So they actually don't come to campus, which is kind of odd. But I think that's basically, once they arrive on site, that's when we would take responsibility. So while we would discourage them from carpooling and coming to practice, I think we all know how they're going to get there. If that's a way of wimping out on the answer, I'll live with that.
I mean, I can see baseball and softball and track. I can see golf and tennis. But when you're getting into the, and I'm a basketball family.
Yep.
When you start getting into bodying up on basketball or spitting in another guy's face in football and sweating all over each other, that's a real problem to me. The thing is, and I've got to say this just to let you know, I got a call at work because we have a wrestling camp in town. And if you look at the governor's safer at home, wrestling is allowed. I think it was the last thing that was allowed. And I could not believe they would allow wrestling. I actually went over and talked to the coach. You just wanted to throw it out there for individuals to have that information. That doesn't mean it's a good thing to do.
Dawn.
So I am going to advocate for sports, either option 1 or option 2. And I know Tom read letters at the beginning, and that pretty much echoed my sentiment. We made a decision on remote learning based on students that have to be bused, are in contact with multiple teachers, multiple students. They're sitting in a classroom roughly 3 feet apart for extended periods of time. When you start talking about sports, it's not the same thing, in my opinion. I say at this point, we vote on fall sports, not sports in general. I don't know if that's an option, but I say we vote on fall sports right now. They're all outside. When you look at how this is spread, what they're saying is 6 feet or less from someone for 10 minutes or more, like face to face. That's not happening in sports. We have basketball programs that have been running for plenty of time for there to have been issues. We have softball programs. We have baseball programs. We have soccer programs. We have field hockey programs. We have all of these programs that have been running safely. My daughter attends the rink that had the issue with COVID. My daughter plays a high-risk sport. That child was from New York. The issues that we've had in our state have been from other states. They have not been from within our own state. And because the ranks, from what I've seen from when I've been there, is following social distancing protocols. I don't know about all the time, but when I've been there, they've been following social distancing protocols. My daughter was there on one of the days when that child was there. Was she exposed to him? I have no idea. But none of the players from New Hampshire, it's been more than 14 days. I don't know of any cases that have come from that one exposure. It was a positive case in a high-risk sport. So I say sports athletics are amazing for our children mentally, socially, and when it comes to boosting their immune system. I mean, we all need to boost our immune system right now to help fight this off. And one of the best ways to do that is with exercise. So I see sports as being a positive for our students. It's an outlet. I have a feeling that because a majority of parents are going to be home with their students or doing cohorts, I have a feeling that transportation to practices will not be a major issue. You know, I do feel that we need to follow that 20 to 25 mile radius. We don't want to go traveling all over the place. We don't want to go to Conway. We want to stay close by. We want to pick and choose the schools. And I feel like maybe if we say, yes, we're doing sports, other schools may also follow suit. So there may be more schools that will come in. If no other schools come in, then it's a moot point. We can't do it. But in my opinion, we should give it a go.
Jamie.
Yeah, I'll echo what Don said. I thought Bob did a very nice job of laying out the options and the reason whys and all the bloody contradictions and all the different guidances. In the end, in my mind, in addition to the points that Don made, I'd make just a couple others. I would say that students that want to participate in sports, their parents, or if they're 18 themselves, need to sign saying basically a waiver that I'm doing this under my own risk. Yeah. Coaches also, I don't know that the coaches are willing to coach. If they are, then you'd want them to say, yep, I understand my own risk. And then lastly is the point that I think Don made at the end is, are there going to be other teams to play? Because if there's not, then again, it's a whole moot point. I love the idea as the backup, what I consider the backup plan is the decathlon and something anyways that we can do to make sure the kids are getting some exercise, etc. I go back to where we are presently. The levels are low. We have to start as a society getting back to things in a reasonable and controlled manner with some of the distancing guidelines. Bob sent us some of the links so you could go in and say, well, what are the kind of the rules here? I think it's worth giving it a shot. If parents won't sign and you can't get a team, if coaches won't coach and you can't get a team, if people aren't there to play, well, then I like very much the decathlon plan to at least let that go. And clearly, if I'm okay with that overall, then I'm clearly okay with golf alone and cross country alone, etc. So Don summed it up better than I am, but my only thing would be the parents would have to sign saying, yep, we understand the risk. We don't want anybody thinking that we somehow medically determined that there's no risk to their children. We're not doing that. We can't do that. We don't know if there's going to be risks. It's different than the risk if you're not playing. And so parents have to accept that risk. That's my thought.
Anyone else?
I think Bob should talk about we did attempt to have coaches sign a waiver, and that is not, it's the coaches can't sign a waiver because they have protections under the law, and it's a part of the collective bargaining agreement for teachers. That's the bottom line. But students, we could have them sign a waiver.
If I
Can you explain that one again?
You can't ask the coaches to sign a waiver. We already went through it. We tried.
I just want to weigh in, then I'll let you go, Pete.
Right.
So I went and read some of these reports by these different athletic groups that Bob cited. The New Hampshire Department of Health and Human Services, the NHADA, New Hampshire Athletic Directors Association, the Federation of State High School Associations, and the Sports Medicine Advisory Committee. And a lot of their recommendations are pretty much the same. This is not going to be sports like it's normal sports, no matter what it is. If you follow these guidelines, you've got all coaches and students should be screened. And Bob, correct me on any of this if I'm off base here. They need temperature checks. They have to respond to screening questions. There's a record that has to be kept. If they have symptoms, they're not allowed to take part in the workouts, and they need to contact their primary care provider or healthcare professional. There's a limitation on gatherings. No more than 10 people at a time, inside or outside, is one recommendation. Another group says 50 can gather outside. No locker rooms should be utilized. Students should report to workouts in proper gear and immediately return home to shower. At the end of the workout, workouts should be conducted in pods of students, the same 5 to 10 students. There's a minimum distance of 6 feet between individuals at all times. Hard surfaces need to be wiped down and sanitized. It includes chairs, furniture, meeting rooms, locker rooms, athletic training tables, etc. They can't share equipment, no towels, clothing, shoes, sports equipment. All athletic equipment, including balls, should be cleaned after each use and prior to the next workout. A basketball player can shoot a ball, but a team should not participate with a single ball. Team drills, not with a single ball. Softball and baseball players should not share gloves or bats or throw a single ball. I mean, it goes on and on and on. So it's not going to be sports like we know it if we're going to follow these guidelines. Bob, somebody wrote us a letter talking about conditioning programs, and these are programs that have been going on through the summer, I understand, and I guess that included football and soccer and field hockey. Can you talk about that a little bit, and how how these safety things would play into this, or wouldn't they? That I just read off.
Well, let me just tell you what we did.
Okay.
So looking at those guidelines, we set up summer workouts that were within those guidelines. So the student athletes, when they arrived, we had through the state, we were able to get enough thermometers for each coach and team group. So one of the coaches would, take the temperature of the kid on their forehead, and then they would ask them a series of questions that we're all used to at this point. And of course, you're relying on self-reporting of the athletes and them being honest about what they're answering. As they come in, then the workouts were socially distanced as best you can. I mean, the reality is teenagers are teenagers. We had, probably 98% compliance on the mask rule. But, you are reminding them as they get not in their car, but near their car, they revert to what they're doing at home. But, they were very good about it. We spread them out. It was all skill-based. There was really no sharing of equipment other than, field hockey balls. But of course, those are being hit with sticks, not people. And they were kicking soccer balls back and forth, but that's, foot to foot off the shoe and so forth. So it's not, footballs were being tossed about within each group. They were cleaned, and the kids would sanitize in and sanitize out. So I think the impact is actually going to be a lot more significant in practice and in the off the field organization that you would have. The coaches that I've heard, the ADs that have been around a while, we would not have common benches for the teams. I'd probably be, going to Home Depot and buying about 40 of those orange buckets and lining the sideline of the field with buckets. And they'd be, I would have the guys mark out, probably 10 feet apart and run them up and down the sideline. For instance, in football, one of the guidelines they have is that instead of between the 30s for the team bench, they have between the 10-yard lines for each team bench because they want the kids spread out. There'd be a lot to do. It's a lot of paper towels and spray and gloves and, cleaning every soccer ball. I've already bought reversible jerseys, enough for most of our kids. Like the football kids already have practice jerseys they wear. My plan would be to launder those every single day for the kids to make sure they actually got done. That sounds like a really fun way to spend my day, but if that's what I got to do, that's what I got to do. So we can do it. But the fact, in my view, remains that you're still putting kids in an aerobic activity where they're breathing heavily, or even at the point of anaerobic where they're actually beyond their, they're running a negative oxygen debt. So they're breathing very heavily and they're right next to each other. And they're physically in contact with kids from their own team or physically in contact with kids from other schools. We've all talked about the scenario where you play a game on Tuesday against, and I'll just use Pelham because I've been using the example of that school all summer, and I've known it for a long time. And then on Thursday, they call us and say that, they had a positive test on their team, and now I've got to quarantine my entire team from all school activities until, we run through the CDC guidelines. So it's going to happen at some school. We're just putting, too many athletes in play all at the same time where that's not possible. I'm aware of at least 2 schools in New Hampshire over the summer who have had athletes test positive. I'm not going to say who that is, but I know of at least 2 schools that have had that already this summer.
So that recommendation, option 5, how does that accommodate football players, soccer players, field hockey players, other than doing track or golf or some other sport?
Well, they would have the option to run cross country. They would have the option to try out for golf. Both of those can be played as a co-ed sport, by the way. In fact, I think our golf team is listed as co-ed, but cross country was boys and girls. And the other student athletes who chose not to go that route or wanted to play with their own team, they would have the option of doing the fitness activities on a daily basis. It would be to some extent sport specific. We could talk about having the kids, using football equipment during the football fitness and soccer balls and field hockey and those sorts of things. The whole cheer situation is something I would want to talk to our coach about once I've been a little reluctant to bring somebody on board as a cheer coach till I know what we're doing. I have somebody. And then they would be working toward that end of the year decathlon type of situation for a competitive environment.
So how would the conditioning programs that they were doing this summer, did that include football and soccer and field hockey?
Yeah.
How would that be different than what you're talking about?
It would probably be pretty similar to that. I've had some early discussions with some of our coaches as I only sent them this report on Monday. But I've talked to some about the idea there's a possibility where the teams might be, you could have, say, the soccer coaches running one type of activity, the football guys running a different kind of activity and doing the station type of setup. There's a lot of planning that has to go into that for the coaches if we were to go that route, and giving the kids the opportunity to, you want to make it fun, you want to make it a variety, you want to make it make sense from a strength and conditioning type of, make sure what we're doing is actually has some logic to it. You're just having the kids out run around. I mean, you can do that, but you want to be building toward something for the kids. And if you're going to ask them to have a competitive thing with a golf club later in the season, you got to put one in their hands a couple weeks ahead and let them have some fun and whack golf balls around the field for a couple hours. So you do want, and obviously with kids, it's incredibly important that it be social and incredibly important that it be fun. And they have to make sure we get those 2 factors in play for them.
So one last question. How would option 2 look different from that?
Remind me of which one 2 is. I don't have it in front of me right now.
Dawn was the one advocating for 1 or 2.
Yeah, hold on, I have it right here. So 2 is participation, and Jim, the one you were talking about before is actually option 4, not option 5.
Okay.
5 is
Okay.
full intramurals, 4 is low risk and such. Option 2, participation in low and moderate sports only. Football canceled altogether. Spirit modified to sideline cheer only. Other sports as normal. Granted, when that says other sports as normal, that means with all the COVID protocols in place.
Yes.
There is nothing that is going to happen without all of those safety protocols in place, period.
But within the, just so we're clear, within the, the four edges of the field, the game in New Hampshire will be played traditionally. It'll be played in a normal environment. Now, that's not going to be true. Vermont is playing 7v7 football. And Massachusetts, as I understand it, which, by the way, just pushed their football season back to February. That'll be fun. They're
doing crazy things.
They are
right
modifying. Now. I know that plan was nuts. But they're trying to thread a needle while they're parachuting, which is the way I've been talking about it.
Yeah, that's what it feels like, Bob. That was perfect.
Exactly. So
while you're parachuting.
Yeah, it's fun. I've had a great time. They're modifying their other sports. So Massachusetts, and we have to remember we're only 6 miles from there. They're going to be modifying their sports and their rules for soccer and field hockey. I believe. I haven't seen any confirmation on that because so much the focus of today's decision in Mass was on football.
And they've already done hockey, and hockey's crazy what they expect for that. They're making some serious changes to everything in Mass.
Yep.
Oh, that's right, because Dawn, your daughter plays there, right? So
yeah, my husband's on the board for the women's program, so he's been getting all the updates.
Yeah.
Okay, anybody else? Jamie?
Yeah, actually, I have a question for Charlie. Do you happen to know whether or not the legislature has passed anything presently about liability, protection from liability for employers?
No, we haven't met.
So nothing on that?
No, they haven't done nothing at the House. We've been out for months. We're going back on the 16th, but that's only to do vetoes.
Say again, I'm sorry.
We're only going back on the 16th to do vetoes. And we're going to the Whittemore Center.
Yeah.
No, we haven't done nothing.
Dawn?
I know we were talking about coaches and we can't get them to sign waivers. Is that just for the staff members that coach, or is that for all coaches? Because I know outside programs have coaches sign things.
Right. No, it's because the coaching, what happened was we asked our coaches to sign a waiver and the union got involved. And Bob, you can elaborate on this because Bob handled it, but
so that's for the teachers that coach.
No, the gist is that our coaching stipends are under the collective bargaining agreement.
Okay, thank you.
Doesn't matter who does it, it's under the collective bargaining agreement. So they have the rights and rules. And I went deep on this one because I really felt like the waivers were appropriate, but our legal counsel said no, that we can't do that. Go ahead, Jamie.
So there's always more than one way to. Oh, sorry.
Okay, just one quick thing. It's my understanding that somewhere in the United States, and I wish I remembered where, there's already been a wrongful death suit against a school district. So, I mean, I'm for this, providing that waiver is looked at by our attorneys, and it's kind of ironclad. I mean, if these parents today, I mean, it's kind of like being in New Hampshire and not owning a snow shovel. These parents know about COVID virus. They're totally aware of it. But it's another thing when your son comes down with it or your daughter comes down with it and they're sick or God forbid they die. And all of a sudden, well, the school said I could play and they'd make it safe. So I want to make sure that, that we're not at any risk whatsoever as far as liability.
We are always.
I like the idea of having sports. I'm from a sports family. My kids are all played sports, so I'm for it. But we have to protect ourselves against that liability.
Yep, and I think it's really important to recognize that the lawyers. Look, I just want to be really clear with everyone about where we're at. This is unprecedented, uncharted territory on every level. Our lawyers are literally sitting in meetings saying, we don't know. That so many things are untested. So Peter, I think it's important to recognize that Primex, so remember early on in this when people were saying that we had to follow the CDC guidelines, but they were just guidelines?
Right. Yeah.
Primex is saying, no, that's not a guideline. If you don't follow what the CDC recommends, we're not going to insure you. So you got to understand that this is super complicated. I'm going to summarize because it's 9:40. That Jim O'Shaughnessy reviewed the situation with the coaching stipends and the coaching waivers and said, no, you can't do that. You can't supersede someone's legal right to the process by having them sign a waiver to do a job that's covered by a collective bargaining agreement. And I know Jamie's going to email me and ask a bunch of questions. Or
Well, I'm going to ask you here.
Yeah. I'm happy to forward what he said later. I have to look. This was 2 months ago. Bob, did you want to, speak to that, Bob? You handled it a little more than I did.
Just to be clear, the coach's concern was not really signing a waiver so much as there was a section at the bottom that basically said, they were basically liable for everything and the district was liable for absolutely nothing. It was just worded in a way that really, it didn't work. And I felt the same way. And so I consulted with our resident in-house attorney and said, this basically, it's sort of like it waived their rights to workman's comp and things like that. And I think that's where the attorney came down and said, yeah, we can't do that. So we didn't push those after that point. And the coaches, they were willing for the summer workouts. I don't have a guarantee that I can get everybody to coach every sport, depending on what the actual situation is and how we play out. I have to revisit that with them. I guarantee you half of them are watching this right now. So, they're going to be in touch with me pretty quick.
Can we move the motion?
Jamie.
Yeah, I was waiting, Pete. The question that I would have is, okay, so Tom said that the lawyer said we can't have a waiver. Bob's saying that the way the waiver was written was such that no rational person would sign it. So I would say that we'd want the lawyer to relook at writing one that's rational as opposed to one that's not rational. Second is a case against a school would be, I was led to believe that somehow I have no risk here. And so they basically knowingly put me at risk without my knowledge. So there's ways around everything if you look hard enough. There's ways to demonstrate that that's not the case. One of them would be by, even if they won't sign anything, by giving them the official statement that says, and having the policy that says nobody's coaching without reading this statement. The statement says clearly, we cannot make sure that you're not going to get anything. So then if you go to a court of law and you say, I'm saying to you that I never understood that to be the case, and you got proof that that's not an accurate statement. And I don't think there should be any discussions as they're not eligible for workers' comp or they're somehow more liable. That's just craziness. So I can completely understand that. But there's ways to work through that administration process.
And there are other schools that are asking their athletes to sign waivers, that are parents, obviously, of athletes, or in some cases, maybe the athletes as well.
If they're over 18.
We can get a hold of those as well.
Right. Again, it's not a problem for parents or students.
Yep.
The problem is with the staff that are under the collective bargaining agreement. Yep. Of course, after this conversation, I'm happy to look into it a little deeper, but the advice was that the waiver wasn't covering, it wasn't helping. It wasn't doing anything.
Sounds like it wasn't the right waiver, though.
I don't think so. I have to say, I respectfully at this point disagree with Jamie based on a conversation that occurred 6 weeks ago, which feels like 9 months ago in my mind with the number of conversations that I have every day. So I'm not willing to go on record. I'm just saying that my recollection is one thing. I need to double check. I'm looking in my email right now to see if I can find it, but I can't. It might have been a conversation, not a written document. Okay. So I need to go back and talk to Diana Rooney and get the documentation, and I'll let you all know for sure. Of course, we can have a waiver. I'm all for it. I think it's a great idea, but my recollection is that we couldn't.
We're kind of glad you can't find it because we want to move the motion.
So I don't know. Speaking of recollection, do we actually have a motion?
I don't think we do, actually.
No, I don't think we do either.
21, if you guys keep going here, I'm trying.
Yeah. Does somebody want to make a motion? I don't even know what to make.
I'll make a motion that we go with option number 1 and see if it carries or not. Somebody can try too.
Is there a second on that?
I'll second it. Second.
All right. So voting, starting with Larry.
Yes.
Charlie.
Aye.
Jamie.
Aye.
Pete.
Yes.
Tammy.
Yes.
Dawn.
Yes.
Wow.
I wouldn't have bet on that.
No, me either. I'm going to vote no on that. Sorry, but I'm outvoted.
This close.
Hey, what happened to being united? Jamie kind of.
Can I make one question and 1 point?
Sure. Yeah.
Bus cost may go through the roof on this, so I would be prepared for that. But then again, I may have games canceled that may ameliorate some of that. And I did want to clarify, although it would be more relevant, I think, if we were not going to be going all in, which I'm now trying to wrap my head around, and I'm not going to sleep for the next week. But can the Sanborn Youth Soccer Association use the fields at Chase and the old middle school complex for they have local rec games and local travel games? And I would like to just ask that because I will probably also get requests from other people I already have to use our fields, in particular people wanting to border cross, which I would strongly recommend against if I can be cranky at 9:45.
So Matt, you have some information on the fields, I think, don't you? Are they usable at this point, or?
For the most part, they're usable. Brought the grass height down. I think what needs to be done now is to bring it down to game playing level, and then also to mark them out.
I talked to our field guy a couple weeks ago, and he's okay. He's okay. He's in good shape to get it done. We'll be fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Pete.
Yeah, I'm not for that. We chew up the fields ourselves so much that I think to have other teams in there chewing it up. If you say yes to one, you got to say yes to the others. You make enemies, and now we've got overuse. And given this dry spell we've had, I think we're asking financial trouble and an awful lot of work for our grounds crews.
I think Sanborn Youth traditionally uses the fields. They're talking, I believe, Sunday afternoons. I don't have it right in front of me, but I believe they're talking, Saturday around our schedule and Sunday afternoon, and it's like 4 hours a week.
Right. Well, we've already got Sanborn soccer. The little kids that use it.
That's who I'm talking about.
What we're talking about.
Wait a minute. You're talking about the kids that have always used it?
Yeah.
I thought you were talking about other teams wanting to use it.
No. I confused you. That first would be our Sanborn Youth Soccer, which I would strongly recommend we do.
Yeah, they've always.
Then we got a request from a football team out of state who is not allowed to play in Massachusetts.
No.
They wanted to use our football field. We already said no, but I wanted to make you aware of that we may come up with that. And then I can say, hey, the board said no. It makes it easier.
So I want to ask a question. When people voted for option 1, did they realize that that exceeds the mileage recommendations that were brought up, that we're not going to stay necessarily within 25 miles or 45 minutes? Because that could put us all over the place.
I think that, I guess, I thought that was still going to be within Bob's recommended distance.
I thought so as well.
Yeah.
All right. So maybe we need to amend our vote then.
Probably then. Yeah. Thank you.
Or maybe come up with a new one.
Yeah.
Can we just do in addition to
The options again?
Yeah.
In addition to, we're just saying basically that subject to the travel restrictions as recommended by Bob.
Yeah. Give me 1 second if you would.
Yeah.
I think Bob should put the options back up there one more time just so that people understand what.
Yeah.
I
That's
couldn't even.
good.
I'm actually
Yeah.
going to put something different up, Tom. I just got to find it.
Okay.
Who wants to start singing the Jeopardy song? You go. So, I know. The later it is,
Tired, it sound monotone.
my bedtime's in 10 minutes. I'm old.
Way past mine already.
No, right?
Yeah.
That is not it. Where did it go? There it is. So this basically is a chart of the travel time and our schools and who we play against. I know it's impossible to see. So for football within my own division, I'm just going through it real quick. I can play Pelham and I can play Alvern. So, you know, that's the challenge is going to be that we're going to be scrounging for games. And actually, I think Timberlane is in our division too. I don't have them listed here, but we can play. But the NHIA said is we can play these teams several times. So I could play Timberlane, and I actually would want to do that. I call Angelo tomorrow and ask him to play a home and home with Timberlane because it's the best possible scenario. They're roughly the same ability level in game as we have, and they're 6 miles away. Plus, we can get their band to come over if they're doing that. So
4 out of 7.
Right. Boom. You know, more ticket sales. I'm into that. So that I would highly recommend we go with a regional schedule. But if you could leave the wording right there, a regional schedule, it gives me a little more flexibility. But like I said, no, it may, you know, bus cost is going to be up, but the distance will be down.
All right.
Yeah, so I make a motion that the approval is subject to regional travel restrictions per the
Second.
Director of Athletics.
Okay, Charlie
Second.
seconded that. All right, so Larry,
Yes.
Charlie,
Yes.
Jamie,
Yes.
Pete,
Yes.
Tammy,
Yes.
Dawn,
Yes.
and yes for me.
Thanks for pointing that out, Jim.
Yeah. Okay, that's a done deal. So subcommittee assignments. So this will go quick. I sent everybody their subcommittee assignments. Dr. Pam Brown committees her seat had to be filled. So 2 of those committees, policy and PR, Charlie's filling her seat. And Charlie's also going to be on personnel. Pete's going to be on finance, and Dawn's going to be on ISA. And everything else stays the same. So, any comments or questions or concerns? All right, thank you.
Don't you need board approval? I think it's policy BBC or something like that.
Yeah, right.
No, I'm serious.
No, you don't. That's
Okay. I thought they had. I thought it was always appointments to subject. Not that we can change them, but
yeah.
Okay. I thought I read that somewhere, but
Yeah,
okay.
nobody had any comments or objections. So
No, that's
unless
fine. No, I agree. I just thought it had to be a blanket kind of,
I'm just trying to move it along.
Okay.
All right, so we've got the MS-22 documents, Matt.
All right. I know this is exciting to talk about numbers so late at night. I'm just going to try to be as fast as possible. I'm going to share my screen here. So the MS-22 is a document that summarizes all the appropriations voted at district meeting, at the annual meeting. Basically, the way that it's prepared is I in all the warrant articles by line item in the budget, and it literally generates this. I've gone through and verified the numbers, and I agree with the total, that the total of all the warrant articles agrees with $36,566,796. Now the state needs this form signed because it will allow the 2 towns, Kingston and Newton, to get onto into the queue for setting the tax rate. And this is actually the last document that the district has to file for that process. Really, that's it. Oh, and if for Charlie's benefit, This is the same as the town's MS 232 form.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
what's the process, Matt? We
So-
sign it electronically or?
No, unfortunately, you're gonna have to come into the office and sign it. I was actually hoping that this was gonna be an in-person meeting. I only learned that this was a remote meeting until recently.
I see.
It just needs to be signed as soon as possible.
How many signatures do you need?
I think I need just a majority of the board.
Okay,
Four.
all right.
We all
Someone
ought
in
to
the
be able to get down there.
When are people in the office?
Normal business hours. There's always someone here now in the office during normal business hours.
What are normal business hours?
8 to 5.
8 a.m. to 5 p.m.?
Yep. Yes.
Okay.
And when do you need it signed by?
As soon as possible.
Friday, okay?
Friday's fine. Actually, we're closed on Friday. I'll be here on Friday though.
Monday's fine.
Monday's good. But for you, Jamie, it's
No,
I'll try to find. I'll try to find a hole on Thursday in my schedule.
I want Matt off on Friday. He needs a break. The guy's gonna burn out. He's like, no,
Yeah,
I'm not taking it. I'm like, you need a break.
Yeah.
I'll find a hole on Thursday or Monday in my schedule and make sure.
So Friday's there's not going to be anyone there on Friday, or there is?
No, I'll be here Friday, and I probably will be here on Saturday as well.
You're not supposed to be there. Just go home.
Okay,
Take a
yeah.
break.
Move on, folks. It's after 10, almost 10.
Oh, we
Tom,
have
could you try that in another language, Tom? He's got an English problem.
Yeah,
Get in there by Monday. Get in there by Monday to sign that form.
Okay.
YMCA.
Yeah, all I need is for the board to make a motion to allow me to work collaboratively with YMCA to house a remote learning program in each of the schools if they can staff it, and B, our staff would provide some support for students for remote learning. The details are not completely worked out, but I don't feel comfortable moving forward until I have approval to at least house it in the buildings. So in other words, the YMCA, we had 250 people ask for a seat in the YMCA. We may not be able to staff it at that level. So the steps would be the board approves that we have a collaboration with the YMCA. We'll develop an MOU with them. And basically they would house the program either in the gyms of the different schools and maybe use a couple of classrooms. And then students, like, for example, for special ed for Jody, those students would come out of the YMCA program and go and get their special ed services and then go back, and parents would pay a fee. The fee structure that's been proposed is $175 a week or $40 a day, but they are working on more funding to help. And it's been good because the parents that are essential workers or that need childcare are reaching out to us and saying that yes, they would use this offer. It would really help them. Some of our paras would probably help to provide support, and we have had a number of teachers who had volunteered to work at the school and offer support to the YMCA program, and I really cannot thank them enough. They have said, if I'm teaching a remote class and I need to have a couple of kids in my room or a few kids working independently, they would be happy to do that. And so I just can't speak highly enough of the folks in our school community that have volunteered to support families that they know are either essential employees or that may lose their home or livelihood to the fact that we're remote. So I do strongly encourage the board to support this endeavor. I wish I had a lot more detail, but it's hard because I've got to get the steps in line, right, to get more detail as to what size the program would be. This program would be available to our teachers should they choose to want to send their students, provided that there are openings. But it is quite expensive, so it's not free for sure. Jamie?
Jamie.
Yeah, I'm supportive of it. I'm glad that we have the teachers coming back. The reality is teachers and the community have real issues that have to be managed, and we have to try to find ways as best we can outside of the box to figure out how best do we serve the community. And I think that this is an excellent opportunity to try and do that. Maybe it solves some of the teacher issues. Certainly it's going to solve some of the people issue, but we got to explore it further to really figure out what it's going to be. And we got to do it and do it fairly quickly. So I'm in favor.
Okay. Anyone else
Make a
want to
motion
comment?
first.
Yeah. We can make the motion anytime.
So the motion that I would request is that the district authorizes me to partner with the YMCA to offer a childcare program during remote learning that may utilize some of our staff on a voluntary basis and our facilities.
So moved.
Second.
All right.
Thank you. I just want to be clear, social distancing and all safety protocols will be required.
Yep.
Vote, Larry,
Yes.
Charlie,
Aye.
Jamie,
Aye.
Pete,
Yes.
Tammy,
Yes.
Dawn,
Yes.
and I'm a yes.
Thank you. And our community thanks you as well.
Medical supplies update. Matt,
Okay. I'll try to make this as quick as possible as well. I believe we have now 15,000 surgical masks on hand, and that's going to go up towards 21,000. If we had in-person service, that's probably not going to last 3 months. I also have 400 masks that are clear, so you can see the person speaking. I have about 100 face shields now, 200 isolation gowns. Unfortunately, I only bought isolation gowns for the nursing staff. I'm gonna probably have to buy another, let's see, wait a minute. Another 925 isolation gowns for special education. Let's see, about 300 glasses, safety glasses for the teachers, the teaching staff, and then we're starting to run down on our rubber glove supply, so we've got another order going in on those. But I think we're starting to get our levels to where we need to be for if we have in-person learning.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So, Tom, when it comes to adding things to the agenda, I forgot what guideline we were using. Was it the Thursday before?
Yep.
Yeah, we try to do the Thursday before.
Okay. So by the 27th then in this case?
That would be great, yeah.
Okay, so if anybody has anything they want added to the agenda, please get it to Tom by the 27th for the September 2nd meeting.
Thank you.
The next Sanborn Regional School Board meeting will be held via remote connection on Wednesday, September 2nd, 2020. Please visit the SAU17.net website for the links to participate. Do we have a public, non-public?
Yeah, I've got 4 items.
Okay. So
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm
Oh,
kidding.
okay. Okay, good.
I pulled a Pete
right.
Broderick. I did it pretty good too. Jim was like, okay.
Yeah, right.
I already wrote down on my notepad, number 1.
All right, guys, it's great to see you all. I'm
Okay,
good.
meeting's adjourned. Thank you
Okay.
all.